Live from the KIJU studios in beautiful Ogasawara, or somewhere else in the world, this is the Monster Island Film Vault, episode 78, Godzilla vs. Biollante, featuring Kaiju Kim and Daniel DiManna. Hello, Kaiju Lovers, and welcome to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. I am your host, the film curator here on Monster Island, Nate Marchand. Okay, fine. We may or may not be on the island right now, okay? Because I don't know when this episode is coming out in connection to the rest of the episodes. Yes, we'll step up production, all right? It was 15 O's, okay? We'll figure out the copyright for that later. Right now, I need to introduce my two guests, yes, not one, but two guests today for this rather impromptu episode. First up, we have the Queen of the Fabulous Empire. And unfortunately, nobody saw the hand gesture. Kaiju Kim.
Hello, thank you for having me on the island again.
I don't know if we're on the island,
or wherever.
Yeah. It's a little confusing because of the placement of this episode, but let's just pretend we're on the island. We can just pretend we're on the island. You may or may not be, remoting in because Jimmy and I might be gallivanting across creation, wrangling escaped kaiju. Or maybe we aren't. I don't know. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff.
You came back to the studio just for this recording.
Maybe I did. I don't know.
No, you definitely did.
And this other voice you're hearing, people, is Dandelion Manna. I mean, Danny DiManna. Sorry.
Wow, nobody's called me that since third grade. I'm having flashbacks. Whoa, man. Well, yes, I certainly.
Are you PTSDing?
No, it's this. I'm having. Yeah, like they're not good flashbacks.
I was gonna say, yeah, Jimmy knows all about PTSD flashbacks.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. He says he's getting better. I don't know if that's true. I hope so because Jimbo and we're pals. I want the best for old Jimbo. But yeah, I'm happy to be back and coming to all of you from wherever the heck I'm coming to you from.
Yeah. Like I said, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. Because, like I said, Jimmy and I have been very busy. We've been producing episodes, and we haven't been getting them uploaded because, well, like I said, we've been busy. But this was a very timely episode, and I blame you for this, Danny.
You're welcome to do that. Yes, I will take the blame. I will take the fall for this one.
You would take the fall for this one. We have moved up a Godzilla Redux episode, but hey, who cares? Godzilla is good for business. So we've moved it up for one very important reason, which I'll mention here really quick. We'll talk about it more as we go, but we're talking about Godzilla versus Biollante today. So we're jumping ahead to the Heisei era because you and Kim are working on a very special project called Erika. And you, Danny, because you have a brilliant mind for marketing, said, why don't you have Kim and I on to talk about this movie so then we can also talk about Erika because it's brilliant marketing. And I'm like, you know what that is? So, yes, I will give myself extra work. And I will...
No, I will give you extra work. And here's why. It had very little to do with like marketing and everything to do with the fact that I know, Marchand, I know one of your greatest weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And I know that your greatest weakness, or at least one of them, is shameless self-promotion. And I came to you with what I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but with what I thought was a pretty good example of promotion that is of the self and does have some shameless aspects to it. So here we are, wherever we are, broadcasting to you from wherever we're broadcasting from because yes, there is a project. There's a cool project. And I am super duper thrilled to be a part of it. We'll definitely get into more of it as we go along. But Kim, this is your baby. This is your project. Why don't you tell the nice people what the actual heck we're talking about?
All right. So do you want the full backstory as to, how this came to be?
Save that for the end. But, just really quick.
really quick.
Because we got a movie to talk about first.
Yes.
Quite.
Yeah. So, yes, quite.
Yes, quite.
Yeah. So,
Bully.
yeah. Yes. Oh, dear God.
Zilla? I'm just glad that I'm on sort of speaking terms with the guy who originated that phrase.
All right. So we're talking about Godzilla versus Biollante because the character Erika isn't really explored much in that film. And I thought, hey, you know what? It would be really cool if we do more about Erika and if we saw what she was doing, like if we got inside her mind and saw what was happening as she was being corrupted by the Godzilla cells as she transforms into Biollante. And so that is what the short film is going to be about. It's going to be an animated short film. We'll get into all of that, but it's going to be a good time. And Danny Boy has been selected to write the script because I like his brain. Danny is like,
according to what you said, is that your exact words were, Danny, I need your brain.
Yes, Danny, I need your brain.
Danny, I need your brain. And then my next question would be, can he keep it in his skull?
Only temporarily because I need it for this project. But yes, Danny, you are like the Aaron to my Moses because I know do the talk speak much good, and you can just you do.
I get to hold the stick while it turns into the snake. Yes.
Or does it turn into Manda?
I mean, that Exodus is open to interpretation. We can go there. No,
that's another podcast for another day.
That's another podcast. Kim, that is.
Jimmy does make a good point. There's also a giant snake on Mondo Island.
There are multiple snakes we can pick from here, but but I get to hold the stick. Kim, that's such a lovely comparison. Thank you. I'm so happy to be a part of this project. I really, really am, and we'll get into all the details of what you guys can expect from it later.
There will be links in the show notes because you people should always read the show notes. I put a lot of effort into those show notes. They are brilliant show notes.
Yes.
Listen to the tone of Nate's voice. Read the show notes.
Read the show notes.
Like when you don't read that, you don't know how much it hurts him when you don't read the show notes. Okay,
it wounds me
because then he calls me at like 3 a.m. and says nobody reads my show notes, and then I don't get to sleep. So if you don't do it,
it's not a good time for anybody.
No, if you're not going to do it for him, do it for my sleep habits.
Oh, okay.
I am making all of this.
So I thought it was all about me. It's actually all about you. I got it. All right.
No, yeah, absolutely not.
I would prefer it be all about Kim, but
no. Well, listen, this entire thing, you and I can sit here and be goofy, but the reason that we're all here, the reason that we have a cool project to talk about, the reason that we're going to talk about it on this episode and use it for a shameless self-promotion is because Kim came up with a really, really wonderful idea for this movie.
All right.
And we'll get there.
All right. Well, first up, we need to get a plot synopsis. We need to let the peoples know what this movie is about. So cue the Bio Wars, Jimmy.
Oh, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, while we're sitting here jamming out to the wonderful, wonderful tunage of BioWars, allow me to elucidate on the plot of one Godzilla vs. Biollante. Picture this, folks. It's 1984. Godzilla just got sealed in Mount Mihara. So naturally, the first thing that people think of is, well, there's got to be like chunks of skin laying around, right? I mean, that's the first thing you'd think about, right? So immediately, all of these interest groups from different countries start swooping in on the wreckage of Tokyo, and they start collecting little bits of goopy Godzilla skin because those cells hold a lot of potential. They're basically the formation of what could be a new genetic arms race. It's no longer about the nuke, it's about genetic power. And, well, things don't go exactly to plan because some of these cells end up getting taken all the way back to a little country that 100% totally exists and wasn't made up for this film called Seradia, and then a bunch of Americans blow it up. Whoops. And because the Americans blow it up, they accidentally, in the crossfire, kill the daughter of the scientist, the Japanese scientist who was there to experiment on the cells. And 5 years later, we do have a time jump in here. Did I mention that? We have a time jump. We jump ahead from 1984 to 1989. And once that happens, we are firmly in the proper Heisei era, right? And we're in a world where Godzilla's been sealed away. But people are starting to think, this is Godzilla we're talking about here. He doesn't stay down for long. I mean, we freaking killed him once and he came back. Not gonna last. So the Japanese government decides, well, we need to come up with something for when he comes back to life. So they go about this a couple different routes. One, they build a mech, because of course they do. The Super X2, baby. You know where it's at. Super X2 is awesome. They also want to do some chemical stuff. So they engineer, or at least plan to engineer, this this terrifying chemical called anti-nuclear energy bacteria that will apparently, once injected into Godzilla, basically cancel out his nuclear power and it'll poison his metabolism. But in order to make it, they need to basically do the whole snake venom thing on Godzilla cells. And they need Dr. Shiragami to do it. He says no. But then something happens. A storm and an earthquake triggered by Godzilla in Mount Mihara causes Erika's keepsake roses to begin to wither and die. And then we find out something rather disturbing. After Erika's death, Mr. Shiragami put her DNA into the roses to try to keep her alive. Little weird there, Dr. Shiragami. What's going on with that, huh? But, grieving father, what are you going to do? Now the roses are dying, and he decides, I have to preserve the roses. I have to make them immortal. So he signs on to the Godzilla cell project, takes the cells, splices one of those cells with a rose cell. What could possibly, dear friends, go wrong? Everything could go wrong. That is the answer, in case you were wondering. Before too long, we have a giant rose that is strangling terrorists and planting itself in a lake. Oh, and then Godzilla wakes up too, which is pretty great. And then he finds the rose, and they fight, because Godzilla is in the rose. You know what else is in the rose? A human girl. Erika's soul is stuck in the rose. So we have something that's part Godzilla, part plant, and part human. And that's just not a great combination, unless you like Biollante like I do, in which case it's one of the best combinations. But the people in the movie don't think it's as cool as we do. Anyway, after Biollante is defeated after the first round, a bunch of shenanigans happens. A really cool dude endorses smoking and then dies after shooting Godzilla with a bazooka. And then there's this whole lightning thing that happens. Godzilla fights Biollante again, but now she doesn't look like a plant. She looks like a giant mosasaur with a little bit of Audrey 2 mixed in. And then she kind of dies, but not really. And Godzilla falls into the water and dies, but not really. And then he gets up and swims away. Dr. Shiragami dies, and roll credits. One of the best Godzilla movies ever made.
Well, that's what a poll said in 2014 in Japan, but it fell out of the top 5 in 2017.
Nah. Yeah, it won for number 1.
It won for number 1 in 2014 in Japan, fell out by 2017, but there was a panel at G-Fest. I'm trying to remember. I think that was, I want to say 2019? I think it was 2019. No. There was I'm going to look it up. But there was a panel, I believe our friend John LeMay, because scratch it off your bingo card. I think he was on that panel, and they concluded, quote unquote, ostensibly, the best Godzilla movie he ever made.
It's a contender. It is so, and it's bizarre because the film was not actually, a financial hit.
G-Fest 25.
25.
Oh, that's 2018.
That was 2018. That would be 2018.
28. But, so it was number 1 in a 2014 poll, fell out of the of top 5 list by 2017, but 2018 G-Fest 25, ostensibly the best Godzilla film. There you go.
And it, like I said, it's a contender, and it's odd because the film, as we'll no doubt be getting into, was not a financial hit when it came out.
No.
It was a very delayed sequel. It came out 5 years after the first one.
Yeah, and for several reasons.
For several reasons.
One was the failure of King Kong Lives. Sorry, John.
I like King Kong Lives too. John and I are in agreement on that.
That takes the unironic lovers count of that movie to 3.
3. That's right.
3. But then they gained some more interest because of the success of the 1986 version. Is 86? Yeah, 86. Or is it 87? Little Shop of Horrors. Horrors.
Horrors. Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah. And although everybody working on the movie said that, any similarities to Audrey 2 is coincidental, I call Bullzord on that. Yes, that's a Power Trip catchphrase that I'm bringing back.
Yeah, why not? A good catchphrase. A good catchphrase never goes out of style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it wasn't a failure at the box office, but it underperformed. It sold between 2.5 million tickets. It made, if I remember correctly, John said it made about $2 million in profit. So it wasn't a failure, but it wasn't a massive hit either.
No, and they were really banking on it being one. Mm-hmm. You know, 5 years later, this is the next big Godzilla film, and it was also a proving ground in a lot of ways because most of the people who worked on it had never worked on a Godzilla movie before. This was a fresh crew. This was kind of
other than I guess Tanaka and Satsuma. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, and there were some other people in there too, but this was a fresh break away from the Showa crew. During my very long stream of consciousness nonsense synopsis, I mentioned that we're firmly in the Heisei era, and I didn't just mean that in terms of the Heisei era proper, starting after 1984. So, like, obviously, the 1984 Godzilla was not made during the actual historical Heisei period.
The proper Heisei era, if I remember correctly, I think it technically starts January of 1989.
Yes. But the real reason I mention that is because in a lot of ways, this is the beginning of Heisei proper, because this is when the standardized look for Godzilla came into effect.
The iconic look.
The iconic
the truly iconic, like, you know, Kim, I'm guessing when most people picture Godzilla, they picture this one.
Yeah, that's what I picture.
Yeah, because going forward, they made some alterations to the suit, but it's basically this design. I remember seeing this design with the Trendmasters toys. You know, that was the one that they went with. So, you know, and Dark Horse used that one in their comic books. Like, this was the Godzilla design for many, many years. Even when the Millennium series started, it was still the de facto design. And correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, I believe the Toho had a statue of it on their campus until 2016 when it got supplanted by Shin? Or am I thinking of...
You are thinking of a different location. So the one you're thinking of is in Hibiya Park in Tokyo. I have actually been to that statue. It stood for a long time. It was kind of an amalgam of different Heisei suits, but it was largely based on the Bato Goji from 1992's Godzilla vs. Mothra. That statue was iconic. It still is there, but it's been moved inside the mall. But the entire Hibiya Park Square was, after Shin Godzilla came out, retrofitted with a new statue and a plaza, all this cool stuff. The Godzilla statue that is life-size, well, suit-sized, not life-sized, that's in front of, important distinction, that's in front of Toho's actual headquarters, the studio itself, which I've also been to, that is the Heisei Godzilla. That is still the Heisei Godzilla, and I don't see that changing anytime soon because that statue is so iconic, and the look is so iconic. There's a reason that Godzilla was de facto for as long as it was, and in a lot of ways it still is. When I close my eyes and think of Godzilla, I think Heisei, you know?
Yeah.
And this was the beginning of that.
Right. And like we said, most everyone who worked on this was brand new to it, which is interesting because there is a line in the movie about how things need to be passed on to the next generation. You know, the Dark Shiragami and one of the other older characters in it, they're looking at the young guy who's heading the Super X2 stuff, you know, the Super X2 operation, and he says, like, yeah, we need to, you know, pass it on to him because he's, you know, look at him, he's carrying the weight on his shoulders. He's taking a nap while they're flying to the lightning grenades, but not grenades, landmines, the lightning landmines. So it's interesting. So it was a proving ground, and this really did define the rest of the Heisei era, for better or worse, depending on how you feel about that.
It's for better, Nate. Come on. This
is one of my favorite films in the Heisei era.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, personally, I honestly think it's better than most of what came after it.
That's fair.
I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. For me personally, this was actually the last of the Heisei films that I saw. I grew up with the 3 middle 90s films, King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Mechagodzilla. And then later on, I was able to see Space Godzilla and Destroya. And then I found 85, specifically that version. And then I found this one.
Yeah.
And I think I got the tape off of Amazon, the Miramax tape off of Amazon used for like $1.50. Which is funny now because
the Blu-ray sells for like $300.
I mean, I was on Amazon the other day and there were copies for $35. So I don't know if they're still there, but
Probably not.
This episode is broadcast to the island. They won't be there, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably not.
Incredibly frustrating that such an amazing film has had such a weird, like you can't get it on disc anymore right now. Like,
it's funny how that was the order that you saw the Heisei films in, because it's the opposite for me. Like I saw 85 and Biollante first, but I only had like slight memories of Biollante. Like I remember like bits and pieces of it. I remember, of course, Godzilla coming out of Mount Mihara. I love that freaking entrance. It's so beautiful.
It is a beautiful, it is a beautiful entrance, and the Blu-ray has a making of feature on it that shows you it shows you the B-roll of them making that. It's actually really interesting to see that and compare it to the movie.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I also remember that.
What I remember most distinctly when I discovered this film was actually that crazy VHS cover art. That was in freaking sane. I'm trying. Was that Yuji Kaida?
That was Noriyoshi Orai.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got it wrong.
Who did? He did all of the Heisei era posters. Orai-san's paintings are iconic for the entire series, not just for the Heisei era. They're amazing.
He kind of oversells the movies with those posters, man. I mean,
a touch, but welcome to movie posters, especially monster movie posters. How many times have you watched a monster movie and like you look at the poster and it's like, what movie were you trying to sell here?
I want to watch that movie instead.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why does it look like this? And like, I don't know. I love the like super inflated, inaccurate marketing of classic monster movies. And this isn't quite the same. I mean, it's crazy to think that this film is now, 34 years old. 34 years old now. I don't like that. That's too much.
It's 2 years older than me.
Time is a flat circle, everyone. I don't like this, but so I'm not gonna lump those in with like classic 50s movies. But now that I think about it, something like Beginning of the End or It Conquered the World was as old. It was as much older than Godzilla versus Biollante as Godzilla versus Biollante is to us now, 30 some odd years. So yeah, you know what? That's enough temporal shenanigans. I'm starting to feel
I mean, this whole episode is full of temporal shenanigans. We know you hate time travel. Get over it. That's the next movie. Well, chronologically, but not for our coverage. Anyway.
Oh no, more time stuff. No,
no. Space is warped and time is bendable. Name that reference. Anyway. You're wrong. Anyway. So the main reason why this was a massive shift is thanks to one man. And good Lord, when I was researching this, and by the way, I have like 15 pages of notes and research on this movie because I'm insane.
Who's surprised? Raise your hand. Makes for great radio.
And nobody. Not even Jimmy. He's not even being sarcastic with that one. But no, he's one of two people who worked on this movie who are now dead. And it makes me sad thinking about that. Because Kazuki Omori, our writer-director on here, I read stuff from some of the books I was looking at that said, not since Yoshimitsu Banno has someone come along and so radically changed the Godzilla series with an absolutely crazy new vision. Now,
I would say that's accurate.
Going to be honest here, I think Banno was wilder, but
there's no comparing the two. Like, yeah.
Omori had more staying power because the movies that came after Hedorah were not like Hedorah.
No, well, Omori. The difference between Omori and there are many differences between Omori and Banno. But the thing about Banno-san is that Banno-san was so. Like, yeah, he changed things, but it was so singular and so
a singular point.
There it is. I'm sorry, everyone. I made that possible. Yeah. So his thing was like his jam was so unique and it was so singular. And I did it again. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't you do it.
He was an auteur. Banno was. I know Nate is literally sitting on his hands right now. He's it's hurting him physically to not hit the button.
Must make Pun.
No. Be strong.
Settle down.
It's like the Mad Doctor and Dr. Strangelove who keeps wanting to do the Nazi salute. He keeps yanking his arm down.
No.
Anyway.
Oh dear. Well, Nazi jokes aside. So anyway, I'll be brief about this. Bono made a movie that only Bono could make, and probably a movie that only Bono and like 3 other people could understand fully.
One of whom is Alyssa Goji Geek.
Yes, and the other one is me.
Foreshadowing. Anyway,
yes,
I like it. I like it too. But anyway,
that is a hint. But yeah, so Omori changed things, but in a lot more, I guess you could say, mass market palatable way than a psychedelic 70s protest film. You know what I mean? So what Bono did could only really happen at that point in time. It was so much a part of how his brain worked and the message he wanted to send. You couldn't make that movie in any other year but 1971 and no other place but Japan. But Omori was very hip, and very modern. He brought a modern sensibility that kind of predicted where the franchise was going to go. He was pulling from things that were popular at the time. As the Heisei series progresses, you will start to see a trend of plucking things out of Hollywood films that clearly Omori took influence from.
And I think it's a little bit of an unfortunate. It gets a little unfortunate toward that. It's not so bad here, but I think it gets a little unfortunate going along. Looking at you, Indiana Jones sequence in Mothra 92.
Hey, be nice to Mothra 92. We like Mothra 92 in this house. You can look at me and judge me all you want. I
don't hate it. I'm just like, I just mean that sequence is kind of crass. I'm just,
maybe I don't know.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about that one.
You bring me back for that Redux, and I'll defend Mothra 92. How about that?
What? You don't need to defend it. I don't hate it.
Why do you hate it so much, Nate? Why is there so much hatred? Why is there so much vitriol right now? I can't even stand it.
Why do you lie? Anyway.
Anyway, never mind.
Oh boy.
Oh, Omori's cool. Omori's a cool dude. Omori really did change things, not in a super psychedelic singular way, but he updated Godzilla and he brought new sensibilities to Godzilla. He brought a new level of, like the espionage stuff, the psychic stuff.
Yeah, it's very James Bondian.
Very James Bond. He was definitely a Bond fan. Definitely liked his action films, his Hollywood action films.
Yep. Yeah, he was a big fan. Yeah. Heath wanted Japanese movies to be more like Hollywood blockbusters, which I don't know if I necessarily want to go all the way to that, but I get why he wanted to. The other thing that he brings with this, which is I think it's a little different, is I don't think we've had this before, is he's a writer and director on this. Now, I know Honda would make, and Fukuda would make tweaks to the script, but they wouldn't actually write them. He wrote these things. Yeah, we have a writer on board, and that is actually that's a fairly, I know we have one other big name to talk about, but that's a nice segue into the other big third major player behind the film who we have to talk about, which is Mr. Shinichiro Kobayashi. Mm-hmm. We definitely have to talk about him. He didn't write the movie per se, but he wrote the general story outline. Yeah, he did. He is famously a dentist. Yes, he was a dentist. Which makes me laugh because I wrote this. What's funny is we talked about the Audrey 2 influence on this. Well, that's funny because I drew some other weird connections with this. So, obviously, Biollante looks like Audrey 2, and if you see the alternate ending for the director's cut of Little Shop of Horrors, Audrey 2 turns into a kaiju. Multiple kaiju. Turns into a bunch of them. Yeah. And the first story treat before this was written by a dentist, and there's a dentist character in Little Shop of Horrors who sings a song called Dentist. You'll be a dentist. And to make it even weirder, that character in that movie is played by Steve Martin, not to be confused with reporter Steve Martin. How does Kevin Bacon fit into all this? Is what I don't know at this point. He fits in somewhere, somehow, some way. Tremors? Can we get a Tremors joke in here? I need to have Tremors on this show at some point. You do. I do. You do. I will find a way. Anyway, and then I'm just saying, if someone could do some sort of weird fan edit, I mean, we have a very talented video editor here, so maybe she can make it happen. I need a video of Biollante singing "Mean Green Mother" from Outer Space.
Oh, well, I'll make that happen. I'll add it to my next edition of humorously edited Godzilla clips.
Or you just edit, just make the mouth open and close to the lyrics. I'm a mean green mother from outer space.
So get off my back.
Get out my face. Mean
After we're done
green.
recording, I'll get right on that.
Yes.
I need this in my life. I have needed it in my life for a while because that note is from my previous podcast life. I need this.
Your check is in the mail, Ken.
My check is in the mail. So
no, you're paying Ken.
yeah,
That's
so
what I'm trying to say.
So Kobayashi.
Or
Kobayashi. What's interesting about Mr. Kobayashi? I mentioned that he's only a part-time screenwriter. He was a dentist by trade. He also wrote for Ultraman. In fact, he wrote episode 34 of Return of Ultraman, and it's the exact same story.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's like, what is it? What's the name of that monster? Was it Leogon? I think it's Leogon.
Leogon. I believe that's right.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Jimmy,
It is Leogon.
You'll have to put that in the notes if we done goofed it.
No, Leodon.
Leodon. Okay. Never mind, Jimmy. You're off the hook.
Yeah. Funny fact. Kako Yodane, who designed Leodon, helped to design Biollante.
Ah, man, the connections.
So we'll knock this out, and then I'll try to get through this quickly so we can actually get into talking about the movie itself. We also need to talk about Kawakita, the other gentleman who is no longer with us. But here's where it starts getting nutty in terms of this, because this movie went through development hell for a very long time. It took them 4 freaking ever to get it done, for the reasons that we've already talked about. And the previous drafts and previous treatments they had of this, because Kobayashi, there was a massive contest. Tanaka held a script writing contest because it had some success with this before. Famously, this is how she just died, and Danny, and you and I need to do a bonus episode about her at some point. The screenwriter for Terror,
Yukiko Takayama.
Yeah, that's how she got discovered, and we got that movie. So Tanaka held another one, and they had over 5,000 submissions.
Yep, it was a lot.
Yep.
That's a lot of submissions.
Yeah, it is. So they had to whittle that down, obviously. And so they went through several rounds, getting it down. They got it down to 15. And they broke that up into 3 different categories. Most of the submissions were from 20-somethings, and they said the winner would get 3 million yen.
It's like $15.
Yeah, $15. So they broke the 15 finalists into 3 different categories, and these just sound insane to me. First, you have Godzilla controlled by a third party, and those third parties included aliens, mad scientists, Americans, and Hitler.
Of course.
Like, what?
Now, there's a potpourri for
John,
you.
find this. I need to know about Nazi-Zilla. That's just so weird to me.
Nazi-Zilla.
Nazi-Zilla.
I'm a little uncomfortable with we're up to 2 Nazi jokes in this episode. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, you guys.
And then Godzilla fighting another monster, naturally. And then, because apparently they had several of these, Godzilla being cloned or fighting himself. Which I'm guessing is this one, this movie they went with falls into 2 of those. Technically. I mean, you should know, Danny, you wrote an article about this for Kaiju Ramen.
I did write an article about
it. And according to this, the one had a Godzilla egg and one had time travel.
Interesting.
Yep.
That's
exotic locations, like James Bond action.
It sounds like they spread all these storylines into the rest of the Heisei.
Basically, that was John's argument. It's like because I got these from John's books, and he said, it just seems like they just spread these out through the rest of the series. So they put together a panel to select the winner, one of whom was Omori, but they also had sci-fi critic Mitsutoshi Ishigami and a couple of writers named Baku Yunamakaru and Chiaki Kawamata. But the one that really surprised me, and if you're into Japanese pop culture, this is a big deal, Osamu Tezuka.
That's true.
Osamu Tezuka For those who don't know, he is a legend in the world of manga. He basically started manga. He's the Stan
legend.
Lee of manga, basically. Created Astro Boy, among other things.
Yeah, Tezuka was no joke. He was the man. I mean, he was kind of the father of manga, the father of anime in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a kaiju guy, and like he liked these things in real life, and does have some interesting kaiju credit out there. I want to say he did draw for Toho in an official capacity a couple of times. So it's fascinating to think we might have had a Tezuka Godzilla pitch. Well, we did have a Tezuka Godzilla.
Well, he helped select the winner. He actually said he liked the Biollante script, but he thought a plant monster with a woman's face was weird.
But think about it. Like we could have had we could have had like a pitch that, you know, that had a little bit of his artistic. I don't know. I mean, obviously not like him directly creativity, but like his discernment, his ability to look at a project and say, I like this one. This one appeals to me in some way.
Right.
You know, there's something about it that speaks to me.
So this was in about 1985, I think. And so they started trying to get the ball rolling in 1986. So you just had about this basically 3-year period where Kobayashi would try to make different drafts of his treatment. And then it got passed on to Omori. And then Omori did several drafts of this script, just trying to work it out. It took them forever. 84 to 89. All right. So they've spent a lot of time trying to get this whole thing figured out. And this is not all of the details from these previous drafts. I'm just trying to highlight what I think are the most interesting things so we can get through this relatively quickly, but these are wild. Absolutely wild. So in Kobayashi's first treatment, the protagonists were actually 2 reporters, and they meet. It's not Shiragami, it's Shiranui, Dr. Shiranui, and they discover him because they're investigating a ship sinking, and they find a body on the beach clutching a piece of paper that says Biollante on it.
That's creepy.
Yeah, so they start investigating it, and then they discover he's made a plant creature using the DNA of his dead daughter at the behest of the Adelia Republic.
Getting closer.
Okay.
Right.
Yep. 2, and then it's a man and a woman for these 2 reporters, Sayaka and Ken. Sayaka is having visions of plant monsters while this is going on, and the Dutalius, a monster that got cut. It was a rat-fish hybrid.
Yes, indeed. And there's some surviving concept art for Dutalius.
Yeah.
It can be. I've heard it pronounced a couple of different ways. I don't know if I've ever heard it spoken aloud in an official capacity by anybody that worked on the movie. So I'm actually not sure what the pronunciation is.
I'm not sure. It sounds super Greek. That's all I have to say.
It does. I believe it might be. It might actually. I think it's
Dr. Nick Dutalius. It's the top.
Whatever.
Thank you.
That's good. That's good. I'm gonna let you have that one.
Oh man, I'm gonna use that the next time I meet Nick.
He's listening right now, and he's
shaking his head. I'm sure. Either that, or he's like, "Huh, that's one I haven't heard before."
Add that to the list. I guess.
Yeah, add that to the list. But Godzilla fights and predictably kills this thing, and apparently eats him.
He eats it. He eats it in this pitch. Like he eats. That's the only time I think we've ever seen that happen in a movie. Like at least it would have been in a movie. Yeah. That he kills this thing and then he just chows down. Yikes.
Apparently, I mean,
dang, Godzilla.
What does rat?
He was hungry.
Well, what does a rat fish hybrid taste like?
Chicken.
That's the obvious answer. Course, yeah. Anyway, and then he obviously fights Biollante, who disappears into space as spores. So we see some of what made it into the final film there. Then he had a revised treatment that introduced the G cells, because in the first pitch, it was just human DNA and plant DNA, and it somehow turns into a kaiju, which makes sense in Ultraman, but doesn't really make sense here. And this treatment also introduces Miki. So Kobayashi created Miki. But the Adelians are changed to the Arabian Nights with a K.
Right.
That's plagiarism.
Uh-huh.
Very much so.
And they think Godzilla is an incarnation of a Nile River crocodile god named Sobeki.
Sobek? Really?
Yep. Well, Sobeki.
That's an alternate way of saying it.
Sobek?
Sobek is how I typically say it. I'm an Egyptology nerd, you guys. On top of everything else I'm nerdy for.
Yeah. But one other thing that's different from the final film is Erika. We got to talk about Erika. Erika is in this, but she died years before the movie even started. And she was a pianist.
A pianist. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Does that have any relevance to the plot later on? Like, do you hear piano music when her soul shows up?
Hold on.
Well,
No, wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Yes. So her father views Biollante as a surrogate daughter. Dr. Mifune, anyone. And then Tachibana, the character Tachibana, at one point in this particular treatment, was Erika's fiance. And another big difference here is Godzilla's atomic ray feeds Biollante. It does not injure her. And she wants to use Godzilla as an incubator.
Oh.
And then she draws him, she like grabs him with the tendrils and is drawing him near to consume him. So I'm picturing the final scene of Little Shop of Horrors, you know? If you watch the director's cut, you know, when Seymour is being slowly moved into Audrey 2's mouth. But she spontaneously combusts because of his radiation.
Well, that's sad.
That is sad.
Yeah. So the reason I bring up the piano thing is that there's a point later on toward the end of the movie where the fiance is killed during a Godzilla attack, and one of the Biollante vines goes into the room where he is and is very sad over his body, and then goes over and plays a tune on the piano that Erika used to play. I
kind of love that in a weird way.
Can we use that?
Yes. I'm kind of blown away because I was aware of like some of the elements of this specific aborted version of the script, but there are so many things in here. I guess I really need to sit and reread John's book because I forgot about almost all of this.
I got these from I pieced this together from two of his books.
Yes.
The Lost Films and Writing Giant Monsters. He admits that he's not entirely sure in one of the books that it was the Biollante vine playing the piano because it could be a translation error. But he was more certain of that in the other book. So that just sounds wild.
I have both of those books. I've read them cover to cover, and I can't believe I didn't remember any of this.
Yeah, well, here's where it starts getting wild again. All right, so then Omori starts working on his drafts. And I'm not going to go into everything because there was a lot of minute things that were here and there. I'm just picking out the things that I thought were the most interesting. So in his first draft, Miki was, quote unquote, inspired by Stephen King's Carrie.
That one I remember.
And Tanaka just said, nope. I don't know what that means. There wasn't any elaboration on it. I was like, what? Was she murdering people with psychic powers? Was she going to the prom and walking out covered in blood? I mean, what's going on? What explain?
I don't know.
Explain this to me, John. Elaborate. Anyway. And this point's just funny. Our favorite Saradian secret agent.
Ah, yes.
I should look up the gentleman's name because no one ever talks about him.
He's just called SSS9.
No, the actor's name.
Oh, the actor.
The actor's name.
Oh, Phil.
Yeah. Manjot Betty? Manjot Betty? I probably said that horribly wrong. But his code name is SSS9. At one point, his name was going to be ASS9.
No.
Oh, no.
But an English-speaking Toho employee told Omori to change it.
No.
Please give that man a raise.
Smart man.
Very, very smart man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
But here's a major difference, and I bring this up because I know it's important to your project. Erika is in this version more. She dies later in the story. Good thing you're sitting down, but strap in.
I think I remember where this is going.
Miki is her clone sister.
Oh.
Yes, I remember this. Yes, that one I remember.
That is interesting.
Yeah, turns out Daddy cloned a human using his own DNA, a girl, 20 years before this. Oh, how old's Miki? 19. And that's why she has psychic powers.
Interesting.
And neither of them knew about each other.
Huh.
Which is why she's able to act as an intermediary between her dad and Biollante, and Biollante calls him father and gets angry at him when they ask her to fight Godzilla.
Can we use that?
Yes, we absolutely. Secret Miki lore revealed. Back the Kickstarter, man.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm like, wait, what? What's crazy is in one of John's books, he just said, oh, Miki was her long-lost sister. Like, okay, but he doesn't elaborate on that. I read the other books like, what? Clone? What? I know what it's like to have a clone pseudo-sister. It's not fun.
One of these days, you're actually going to call her a sister, and it's going to make her day.
Just call her your sister, man.
Just
you know,
call her
you
your
know
sister.
No,
you
listen,
want to.
She's so cool. She and I broke an email out of a cage together. Okay, she's cool.
Yeah, and then she got in trouble for it, and you almost got barred from the island.
Yeah, well, I got some hole shot into my Pteranodon bot. That's for sure.
Yeah, you still need to get that. Yeah.
Thank God for the duct tape.
Yeah, thank Godzilla for duct tape. Yeah, and then so that was just wild to find out about that. Yeah, which I kind of wish they had left that in there, but the final product is already kind of convoluted. It has a gazillion characters in it, so
it's got enough going on.
Yeah, it's got enough going on as it is, but that. I mean, I don't know. You could drop a few other people and put in the crazy Miki lore. I'd be cool with that. Yeah.
I wouldn't be mad about that.
I wouldn't be mad about that either. Anyway, and then in a second draft, that's when he became Shiragami. And just to hammer the point home that he's a mad scientist in a Godzilla movie, he was going to have an eye patch.
Of course.
He was.
That's what he was missing, the eye patch.
And also, this was apparently done because Omori is not paying attention to the news because he didn't realize Harada was dead because he wanted Harada to play the part.
Oh,
yep,
no.
He originally had Akihiko Harada in mind to play another scientist in a Godzilla movie, and he
with an eye patch.
With an eye patch.
Would have been the third time the man has worn an eye patch in a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Technically fourth. He did a live stage appearance in the early 80s as Serizawa wearing the eye patch. There's footage of it out there. It's great.
Yeah.
So obviously he was already gone by that point, and I guess Omori got the memo last, unfortunately.
Apparently, but then Omori also said that he toyed with the idea of having, and he had an actress in mind to do it. He was going to have a woman play the part. Tanaka said no. That was a pattern I quickly realized. There is a long string of Tanaka telling this man no.
I feel like he hired an ideas guy is what he did. He hired a guy who had enough ideas to fill a trilogy of movies, and Tanaka basically had to rein him in and say, listen, Slick, you have an hour and 40 minutes to play with. You can't do all of this stuff. You're going to lose the audience. You know, and there's already a lot happening in the finished film.
Right, yeah, well, which is funny because I was reading that said that they gave him a lot of creative freedom. I'm like, yeah, and I'm also reading they told him no quite a bit.
Honestly, it's good to have people in your creative sphere who will tell you no, because they might see things that you don't. They might be able to say, yeah, I know that you're this incredibly talented writer, director, artist, whatever, but sometimes the kitchen sink can't be part of it. You know, you have to take something out.
Right.
And I feel like Omori his brain was just a tangled mess of kitchen sinks.
Yeah,
you know?
that's an image. And just a couple of just quick things. There's over 100 pre-production designs for Biollante. They took them forever to come to a final design. And there's also some pre-production drawings of plant-human hybrids that look like the Matango. Don't tell Dr. Dorif. And that's because at one point there was a concept in a previous draft where people would be mutated by getting exposed to Biollante's blood.
Gross.
I remember reading about that too. That is awesome and creepy.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of body horror in these unmade versions.
Yep. Also, at one point, Miki was literally going to raise Godzilla out of water with telekinesis.
I would have liked to see that. That would have been cool.
I'm like, well, Omega level mutant, anyone? Is she the next host for the Phoenix Force? What?
Nate, are you like a nerd or something? Or?
Yeah. But the funny thing is Tanaka shut that down, but he also just tried to get Miki out of there completely. Apparently he did not like Miki. I don't know how Miki's even still in the movie.
I guess Omori went to bat for her,
Yeah, because he tried to get him out. He tried to get Miki out of the movie.
Boo.
He tried really hard to get, which is funny, yeah, because then
awesome.
she became the linchpin of the rest of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all that stuff's just basically wild, but there's also this one other story about why I think Tanaka ended up not liking Omori. And they, told him no quite a bit because he was kind of impertinent from what I was reading. Yeah. Here from Cowlett's book, he said that Omori impertinently introduced himself to Tanaka, saying the producer had let the Godzilla brand deteriorate. He enjoyed Honda's films like Atragon and The Mysterians as a kid, but now he considered them guilty pleasures, and he thought Return of Godzilla was too retrograde. There's your word of the day. And that he could do better. Also, he was a physician who worked at Watanabe Productions, and which was the organization that represented the Peanuts, in case you wanted to know.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I was like, I know that name. And they were the Peanuts people.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, yeah, Omori and Tanaka did not get off on a good foot.
Mm-hmm. No, Omori kind of had a bit of a cocky streak to him, especially earlier in his career. He, in a lot of ways, he was an interesting choice to helm this movie and to guide Godzilla into the next generation. Because as much as the Return of Godzilla was the beginning of the next generation of Godzilla and did a lot of new things, it still really does really in a lot of ways feel like a Showa holdover. It's got Nakano doing the visual effects. It's got a suit that's got 1 foot in Heisei and 1 foot in Showa. It's got it's very, very informed by the 54 film. But we've already been over it, but Biollante really was a radical departure, and it cannot be overstated how much a part of that Omori was.
Right. Well, and the reason why, and then I'll say this really quick, and then we'll talk about Kawakita and a little bit more about the movie itself. One of the things that that's always struck me about Biollante is how much more modern it feels compared to the rest of the Heisei movies that came after it. In terms of style and tone and honestly production value, it clearly had money thrown at it. Lots of money. I mean, I know people talk about Legion from Gamera 2 being a feat of tokusatsu. Guys, Toho did it first with Biollante. That thing's insane.
It's a crazy prop. It's crazy.
Yeah. It took 20 people to operate it, and the final form, operating all the vines. Like if you look at the behind the scenes stuff, it's nuts. They had to put it on a vehicle and move it forward. They actually came up with that idea on the fly. And they're like, "Hey, why don't we make it charge forward?" And they made it charge forward, and they're like, "That was amazing."
The B-roll for this movie is a trip. I recommend everybody go watch it. It's on YouTube for free. It's on the DVD if you have it or can track it down without having to sell a kidney, but it is worth getting to have that bonus feature.
Right. But like I said, because it's very somber, it's wistful, it doesn't feel like the rest of the Heisei era. The rest of the Heisei era feels like throwbacks to the 60s and not necessarily the best throwbacks. I think it's trying to be Showa again, but it can't quite recapture the Showa magic.
Biollante is the most unique of the bunch because it's the one that was trying to move forward most. Return, like I said, really has a lot of its foot in Showa, has 1 foot in Showa. Biollante embraces the future. It embraces this new outlook on what the series could be moving forward. And a lot of that is exemplified in the fact that Tanaka pushed for an original monster. That's a big part. I mean, his entire thing was this is a new series. It's a new generation. Godzilla's going to fight new monsters. And
Biollante is unique among kaiju because there aren't a lot of plant monsters. I'd say you have Audrey 2 and you have Day of the Triffids. That's the only ones I can think of off the top of my head.
I mean, there are a few out there. I mean, there are a lot of television plant monsters. There are at least a couple great ones in the original Ultraman that I can think of. One of the earliest Ultra Q episodes with the mammoth flower.
The giant flower.
The mammoth flower that grows out of the building. That's iconic. And so iconic that Gamera 2 essentially swiped it. You know, it's an homage. It's not a swipe. It's an homage. I mean, it's no secret that Kaneko was a big fan. Right. I mean, the GMK, the characters are part of an organization called BS Digital Q. Clearly, he's a fan of Ultra Q.
I mean, come on, that's also very satirical. Let's be honest.
I mean, naturally, but welcome to GMK.
Yeah. But anyway, so like I said, it really feels the most modern, and sometimes I kind of wish that the rest of the Heisei series had gone that direction, but I don't know. I don't think that would have made the studio happy. I think Tanaka had basically a lesser version of what happened with him and Banno. Is he's like, oh, well, that wasn't terrible, but don't do that again. As opposed to, well, supposedly telling Banno, you'll never work in this town again. Which apparently wasn't entirely true, but
exactly not entirely.
He was still very angry at the man, but
no, he was not pleased.
He was not pleased, but yeah. But let's also just really quick, so we can get into some other things. Let's talk about Kawakita, special effects director on this. This was his first Godzilla film, so Nakano is done. He had been working with Toho for a while. His first major movie as a special effects director was Sayonara Jupiter. You love that for the wrong reasons.
I was waiting for Jimmy to pipe up when you mentioned Sayonara Jupiter. Oh boy, Jimmy, you need to. I'm not going to say it, but you gotta like calm down a little bit.
Yeah,
buddy. Come on.
Kim, I'm guessing you have no idea what we're talking about.
I don't know if I want to have an idea of what you're talking about.
I have an episode on Sayonara Jupiter if you're ever curious. It is a Toho science fiction movie that wants to be 2001: A Space Odyssey and infamously features zero-G lovemaking.
So Godzilla versus Biollante.
There you go.
So Kawakita.
Kawakita, folks.
So Kawakita. Here's the thing. I respect the man, but it seems like now suddenly people can't agree on where to land on Kawakita. Some people love what Kawakita did. He famously loves glitter. I think he loves glitter more than my pseudo sister, which is saying a lot.
What the sister bash?
Anyway,
sister bash.
So
I can't.
But some people also think that he took too much of a workman attitude toward his special effects as opposed to, I guess, apparently Tsuburaya. Tsuburaya would definitely approached it as an artist, and I guess Nakano as well. But I don't know. Where do you two stand on Kawakita?
He's good people.
You enjoy his work.
Yes.
I agree. I grew up with the three of the 90s films as like the three Godzilla movies I probably watched the most outside of maybe like a handful of show. Like when I was little, those were some of the first ones I found. And his visual effects style was a big part of what made me a fan. And I know a lot of people have critiques and some of them are very valid. Some of them maybe not as much, but some are. But even through all of that, I have a lot of admiration for the stuff he was able to produce and the visual style that he had, the techniques that he pushed. His matte work, I think, in a lot of the films is like, especially in movies like Space Godzilla, are pretty stunning.
I honestly think Biollante has some of his best work that I've seen. The space stuff in Sayonara Jupiter is very impressive, but in terms of his kaiju work, I think this is top notch. I think Biollante
could take the cake, taken within the context of when it was made. When you look at it within that context, I think Biollante is a contender for the best visual effects of the whole series. I think it's again, you have to take it within the context of it being made in 1989, which means you can't really compare it to like 2016 or even go back to the 50s. Within the context of the era, I think it, for what was capable of being done at the time and how much of that the film embraced, I think Biollante is a contender for having produced some of the best, most solid visual effects of the entire series. And one of the big differences between, Nakano and Tsuburaya and those guys, and then what Kawakita was doing, is Kawakita was kind of doing almost a hybrid of a more realistic approach and the very kind of fanciful stepping into reality, as opposed to trying to achieve realism that Tsuburaya's crew was doing back in the day, because tokusatsu and kaiju are not really about trying to replicate reality. It's about stepping into a reality. They're not trying to replicate our world. They're trying to create their own and then invite you in, kind of like the Muppets. I always use the Muppets as an example. Anybody who watches the Muppets and is disappointed because Kermit doesn't look like a real frog are cheating themselves out of the joy of watching the Muppets, right? So if you go into Godzilla and you expect to see 100% photorealism in one of the Japanese films, at least, the legendary films don't count for this because they are aiming for realism. But like Ultraman and like classic tokusatsu in general, they weren't trying to be photoreal. They were creating a world, and they were inviting you to have the imagination to step into it. What I like about Kawakita's work is that he embraces that, but he's also trying to go for really trying to convince you that this world is real. Miki is really standing on that boat staring at Godzilla in the water, having a psychic connection with him. Those moments of interaction that he's able to capture in this film and in a lot of the films going forward are so real that you believe that a human is standing in front of Godzilla, and it's more believable than it had ever been before. Mm-hmm. And that's an incredible achievement. Mm-hmm. And so Kawakita, like, his work really does mean a lot to me personally, so I can't hate on him. Yeah. I actually got the chance to tell him that in person about 9 years ago at G-Fest, which was really special. That I got to sit with him, chat with him, and I told him what his films mean to me. And I'm glad I did, because about 5 months later he passed away. Mm-hmm. That was one of his last public appearances, was in 2014 at that year's G-Fest. So yeah, that was a sad moment for me when he passed. Almost every conversation I saw started with, his effects weren't great, but I'm sad he's dead. Wow. And that's not a very nice way to honor this guy, I don't think. I saw a lot of that, but I have a lot of fond memories of what he was able to do, and I respect the artistic merit he brought to those films tremendously.
Yeah, it's something, Kim?
Yeah, I was speaking of, like, everything feeling real in the film. I just wanted to say that I love the way that Godzilla feels like more alive in this one. Like, you can actually see his tongue moving as he's roaring, and it kind of like feels like he's actually like an actual creature. That little detail just makes it like so much better. Yeah, it just makes a difference.
Yeah, they brought back the Cybots. Well, it was a variation of the Cybot. They made animatronic heads for Godzilla for close-ups to do the expressions, and he made sure that they matched the suit, because
they used the same mold. They used the same molds to cast the animatronic heads and the suit heads, which had never been done before, because if you go back to the Showa era, the hand puppets were completely different. The Cybot is completely different from the Return of Godzilla suit. And Kim, you absolutely hit the nail on the head. Like the way that the eyes move, the snarling in the lips, the articulated tongue. Godzilla lives and breathes in this film in a way that he hadn't before, and he just feels so much like a real animal. In this film.
And that was what he was going for in this. He wanted to get away from anthropomorphisms, and basically, how I would paraphrase it, he wanted a more naturalistic Godzilla.
Naturalistic Godzilla is the best Godzilla.
I don't know. I still have a soft spot for superhero Godzilla, but
I love superhero Godzilla.
But yeah, but he wanted to get away from that. That's why he stopped doing the quote unquote wrestling moves and went more for the infamous beam battles, because he thought that would make it more naturalistic. I'm like, okay.
I don't know. When I was a kid, I always appreciated the beam battles, because I thought if you're a creature that big and you have a ranged attack, strategically you would use it. So I always thought that was more realistic. And also the Heisei films are full of the monsters grabbing each other and punching each other and beating the crap out of each other. I don't know where the myth of it only being beam battles came from, but it's silly.
Yeah.
There are a lot in there, but I don't know. I never had a problem with it.
Yeah. But what's
like
interesting is some of the things I was looking at made it sound like he was a really big stickler for stuff. Like there's a lot of cut footage from this movie, which again, if you get the Blu-ray, you get to see a lot of it. There's some wild stuff that they cut out of it. And because the script was constantly being rewritten and all of that, and they would film stuff and then they would have to discard it because Kawakita wasn't happy with it. So there's stuff like at the end of the movie, famously, when Biollante turns into spores, it basically turns all of the hillsides on either side of the lake into neon flowers. It just blooms. And he didn't go with that. I'm like, well, that's kind of sad because it looks cool.
I like that. I wish they had kept that. Can we use that?
Yeah. I was about to say,
can we use that?
A, can we use it? And B, Kim, I know you like that scene. I know that you think you like that scene a lot.
That one was a very nice scene. Something you'll appreciate, Danny. And again, if you have the Blu-ray or the DVD, you could see it. They had stop motion.
Mm-hmm. They had stop motion.
They had a stop motion scene of Godzilla fighting Biollante vines. Mm-hmm. But Kawakita didn't. Kawakita, they made it, and Kawakita's like, not good enough, and then they didn't use it.
It didn't match the suit, and that
it didn't match the suit, and they couldn't put water in it.
Yeah, the water wouldn't have worked because that's the Lake Ashino sequence. Mm-hmm. And that's also where the flower scene came from. And the reason the flower scene was cut, because I'm like Kim, I love the flower scene. We both love that scene. It's so ethereal and beautiful. And the two reasons why it was cut. One, the flowers are out of scale with Godzilla. They're like 2 stories tall.
Yeah, they're giant. Like Godzilla's going to go over and like pull one out and go find himself a Shizilla to give it to. And
basically, like they're scaled to him.
He's like, hey, you want to make another Minya?
Oh no.
Find our Jupiter. Anyway, no, so I can't. But the other reason they cut that out, and I actually didn't notice this for years because I was talk about letting go of realism and just embracing the reality. A lot of those flowers were just crinkled up balls of tissue paper. And you can, if you actually, once you're told, you can't unsee it. It's like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Yep. Balls of paper. So once you notice that, the illusion, at least to Kawakita, who did have a perfectionist streak, was shattered, and it was like, I can't do it. It's too expensive to reshoot.
I just did an episode on Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger where I found out that Harryhausen made an effect using dental floss.
You got to be crafty. Listen, I mean, that's the thing about these movies is you got to be crafty and use your stuff. And I think that if they'd reshot it and used a slightly different technique, maybe made the flowers smaller, they could have gotten away with that stuff. I mean, They absolutely could have, but doing a big effect scene like that and then doing it all over again, it just wasn't feasible. It's the same thing with the infamous alternate ending of the film, which uses cell animation.
Yep, that's also on the Blu-ray. That, I think, for me personally, was the wildest one to see because suddenly Biollante turns into an anime and eats Godzilla.
Wait, what? Hello?
Yeah, like it's literally cell animation put into live action where Godzilla falls over, and then suddenly Biollante's an anime and opens up her big old mouth, and the idea is that she's swallowing Godzilla. And then apparently the idea was she does that not to kill him, but to take away all of his hatred. So he would have basically turned into superhero Godzilla after that. And Tanaka said no.
And Tanaka said no. That's the theme for this episode.
Hashtag Tanaka said no.
Hashtag Omori's tears. Omori's crushed dreams.
Can we bring Tanaka back from the dead and put him in charge at Monster Island so he can say no to the board for me?
Yes.
I'm sure that technology exists somewhere in the twisted lore of your little island, sir.
Just mix his
lore?
cells with Godzilla cells, and then he can come back to life.
Oh gosh.
You know what? It's just morbid enough. It might work.
This sounds like, oh crap. I shouldn't have said anything.
Yes.
Dr. Dorff listens to every episode. He's probably drawing up plans right now.
Oh dear.
I'm surprised he hasn't called in yet, considering this is a plant monster movie. Maybe he's on vacation.
Oh no.
Anyway, we got to wrap it up. We don't want him like accidentally like hearing us.
No. It's like
no.
nope. No, I mean, you and I went through this before. It's like you say his name enough, he's like Beetlejuice. He's just gonna show up.
It's true.
Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't have our phone numbers or something. That would be freaky. Anyway,
stop giving him ideas.
Move it on.
Anyway, so yeah, all of the weird stuff that got cut. So I think we've waxed philosophical about a lot of this stuff. We should talk about the actual movie itself. I think a little bit, and not what could have been.
I think so.
It's good. The end. Nice podcast.
Good talk, guys.
Good talk, everybody.
Yeah, good talk, guys.
But
something I will bring up is that we've hinted at it. A big thing in this movie is genetics and genetic engineering. It's something that I talked about in my previous podcast life. Is not long after, it's like maybe a year after this, 1990 was when the Human Genome Project got started up. And if we have some time, I may share a little bit of research that I did on that particular subject. But this is at a point where in a lot of classic speculative fiction, comics, popular science fiction, all that, radiation was magic and could do anything. At this point in the late 80s and definitely into the 90s, the shift has completed to genetics are magic. Hence why when you see the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, it's not a radioactive spider, it's a genetically altered spider.
There you go. Everything back in the 30s, the monsters were created with electricity and, like transplanting body parts and stuff or straight up supernatural. In the 50s, it was all atomic. And in the 80s and up through the 90s, Jurassic Park, it was genetic power.
Yep, genetic power. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely marking a shift in what people are thinking about and what is a good trope to use in the story. Radiation didn't go completely away. We still see it show up in the Godzilla series, but we're definitely seeing it's moving away from that. And I think that's partly, at least according to some of the essayists that I was looking at, they talked about how it's because at this point Japan's moving on from the nuclear bombings. It's still an indelible part of their culture, but at this point it's been over 40 years. They're moving on. Some would even say they are healing from it. So it's not as big of a deal anymore at this point, which according to some of the authors I looked at means that you can look at this movie with Biollante representing genetic power, as you put it, or even hubris. Again, we have another monster representing human hubris dabbling in something. With Godzilla, it was atomic energy, and now it's genetics. So you have those two things clashing with each other at this point.
There are a lot of interesting ways that this film addresses the evolution of what is terrifying in science, right? At that particular moment. That's another thing I really like about the Heisei series, and I think this film does it the best out of any of them. The Return of Godzilla updated the nuclear threat to the Cold War, and this film updates the threat to the genetic power creating monsters. And as we go through the Heisei series, you'll start seeing environmental destruction is a concern, Japan's economy, the bubble economy, and terrorism, and all these different interesting things start coming to the forefront.
Right.
And then, of course, you have Destroya, which is a critique of WMDs in general, using a fictional one as the basis for its conversation. But at this point in Biollante, we're in a pre-Dolly the Sheep world here. We are
sheep.
Dolly the Sheep, man. And that, it can't be like overestimated, like how much of a paradigm shift that was, but at this point when cloning and just genetic experimentation, human genome, all that stuff. We'll talk about that more in depth later. Or rather, you will, and we'll sit here and pretend like we understand what you're saying. But
I know that happens a lot. Shut up.
Come on, Jim. You can only inflate his ego so much before he pops like a balloon. Anyway, don't actually pop, Nathan. That was not a suggestion. That was sarcasm. But yeah, this movie has. If
it wasn't a suggestion, that means you want my head to pop. Anyway, moving on.
Genetic power is really spooky. And no, your head is fine. It's all good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there aren't a lot of Godzilla there aren't a lot of the Godzilla films that I think tackle the big central scary theme as well as like maybe a handful. And I would say this is part of that handful. Obviously the original does it well, 84 does it well, GMK does it exceptionally well, where that theme is just prevalent throughout the whole thing and it's unmistakable what the filmmakers are trying to tell you. Shin Godzilla's one. And this is one too. This is absolutely one where you watch it and you can feel the anxiety about this new technology just coming off of the screen. And you can't help but really take it to heart and think about it. It's spooky.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because this was, I was not alive when this movie came out. So it's an interesting kind of time capsule looking back at, what the opinions were then.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about the way that this movie goes about it, is that it's how Biollante is presented. And by the way, I'm guessing that's the pronunciation we're agreeing on is Biollante, because that's what I say. Because what is it in the dub? It's Biollante, which is what I said for years, and
me too.
And it's Biollante or Biollante if you listen to the Japanese, and so
yeah, I've always said it Biollante. It just sounds it just sounds right, and it kind of sounds like a Spanish announcer. Biollante,
yes.
Gojira tai,
Biollante, elbow drop. Why did I go to Luchador? I don't know, but
Luchadorzilla.
Yeah, I'm sure that exists. I've seen. I played a Luchador video game once where you could add Ultraman crests to your mask. So
I would watch El Santo versus Godzilla. I would watch that film. I would absolutely watch that.
El Santo versus Ultraman. Yeah,
I would watch that too.
Yeah. Anyway, so the way Biollante is presented in this is interesting because you have all this anxiety juxtaposed against it's something that's meant to be beautiful, incredibly feminine. At one point, Kobayashi said he did that on purpose because he wanted Biollante to represent kind of like the terror of the female, something that's mysterious and and beautiful, whereas Godzilla is the terror of the male, as he put it, and they're clashing here. So you have a rose with, if you look right there in the center, there's a little bits of chompy teeth that are, and the vines with the teeth on the ends and everything. So it's like I said, it's that middle form, we'll call it that, because one of the authors that I looked at argued that the one in the lab is a different form, and he said it looks like something out of John Carpenter's The Thing.
Interesting. I've never seen like a concept sketch for what that lab-based form looks like.
It always see are vines, though.
Yeah, all we ever see are just the vines.
And it's just regular vines, no toothy vines.
Yeah. They don't have the Venus flytrap tips to them.
No, they don't. They're just vines. But
they could snap people's spines. That's spooky. You don't want to mess with those things.
Yeah, you don't. But that middle form is probably, honestly, I think the most interesting out of all of them because of those juxtapositions, which I think goes to something that the two of you are going to be exploring in Erika. So, because I'm guessing, based on what I know about it, that probably a lot of what you'll be covering will be that phase of Biollante's development.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And Biollante is also has the very modern concept. Not the first time we've seen it in the Godzilla series. Looking at you, Hedera, but the metamorphosing monster, multiple forms, changing throughout, and basically every single Heisei monster Godzilla fights does that to some form or another. In some form or another, even Mechagodzilla, because once you slap the Garuda on his back, he's Super Mechagodzilla. So this set a trend too.
Well, Kawakita loved the transforming monster thing, and Bandai didn't mind either. Let's be real. I mean,
why didn't Bandai make a Space Godzilla Christmas ornament? I'm just saying.
I don't know. I mean, Bandai didn't make a standard sized rose Biollante either. Getting into some collector talk here, but the rose Biollante I have is a smaller scale candy style vinyl figure. There are more rose form Biollante toys out there now, but at the time they only made the adult form, which is a great figure. That vinyl is a great figure. But yeah, Kawakita, leaving the Bandai stuff out of it and hey, we'll sell more toys. But Kawakita liked transforming monsters, which is why Mogera splits in half. It's why Mechagodzilla gets a backpack. It's why, even Space Godzilla has a flying and a land form. I mean, all of the characters grow and change, and that also ups the threat level for Godzilla. It keeps things dynamic and interesting. The monsters are kinetic in the Heisei series. They don't just stay in one place. They don't stay in one form, and they continue to evolve and present new threats. And because the first form of Biollante is more surreal and beautiful than it is terrifying. It's conceptually terrifying when you think about what it is. But when you look at it,
and the sound is interesting too.
Oh,
because Biollante sounds like to me anyway, because I grew up watching Star Trek movies, sounds like a humpback whale.
Those are whale calls.
Yeah, I know they're whale calls. Whether they're specifically humpback or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with Biollante's roar. Like, it's so unique and haunting and kind of creepy.
Yeah, she sounds mournful.
Exactly. That's one of the things that we're going to be exploring in Erika.
Yes. There's a reason why that sound, at least to me as somebody who's watched the film 1,000 times, I feel the human part of Erika in the of the Biollante, the Erika in Biollante in those sounds. I always have, and I think Kim has very similar feelings about that. And there's something mournful. It's like weeping. You can feel pain there. It's beautiful, but painful. If that makes any sense.
Right. Which, like I said, when you get to the final form, and I saw a lot of different drawings for what they were going to do with different designs. And I think it was actually Tanaka who insisted that they make the final form more reptilian. I think Kawakita had a different idea in mind. And again, Tanaka said no. #Tanaka said no. And he wanted something more reptilian. And I think that actually works to the film's benefit. When you go reptilian, I think it triggers something in the human brain that immediately says that is something that is unknowable and probably a predator. It's scary. It scares them. The lizard brain, humans don't quite understand because lizards are reptiles, we'll say, very different from humans, and what you don't understand, you fear.
Exactly. I love that they explore that in this. I think they made the right call going for the Mosasaur style, just big crocodile chompy head.
And it's that mouth is nothing but teeth.
So
Good Lord.
teeth.
I remember seeing that as a kid, and I'm like, this is the most horrifying Godzilla monster I have ever seen. It's nothing but a mouth of teeth.
I hate to be Biollante's dentist.
You'll be a dentist.
Although if she did have a dentist, I think we can all, maybe it wouldn't be Kobayashi. Maybe she's more of a Steve Martin person. Maybe. I don't know if after that movie, if I'd let Steve Martin anywhere near my dental work, but I don't know.
The kaiju dentist, that's something that needs to happen. I'm just saying.
Do you have one on the island?
Not that I know of. We may have to hire one. Maybe there's, I don't know. Maybe we can have Ultraman Zerth do it. He's kind of he's a bit of a hypochondriac. He might be good at it. He uses an electric toothbrush to transform, so why not? I'm a nerd.
He might be your guy. It's true.
Good Lord. Now the board's like, hire this guy, man.
Oh my God.
Because they're listening in on us right now. You keep giving them ideas. Is what you're doing.
I am sealing my own doom at this point. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about that design. Like I said, if you thought Legion was a feat of tokusatsu, good Lord, this one. We talked a bit about it already with the 20 puppeteers and everything. And if you look at the B-roll footage, they are going nuts with this. Like they said the first time that they brought that prop on set, the crew were just like, what are we going to do with that? Like, how are we supposed to use that? They didn't know what they were going to do. They were just freaking out with that one. And, you know, like it's spraying sap all over the place. And they said like that, if that stuff got anywhere on you, it was a permanent stain. Like there was no way to get it out.
If I'm not mistaken, they didn't bring that prop to set till like a week left in filming, right?
Yeah, it was really late in filming when they brought it over. And, you know, so they were scrambling to get all of it done. And like, you look at it and just like, man, what they accomplished with this is crazy. You know, and how does Biollante move without legs? Oh, wait, she has legs on the Trendmaster's toy. Why, I don't know, but...
She just kind of slithers. She crawls around, drags herself with her vines. It's a creepy effect. You don't really see it happening, but you do get a sense that she is kind of crawling.
Right.
Like a plant that's uprooted itself.
Right. And I got to say, I mean, I know that the obvious comparison is Audrey 2, because Audrey 2 had the little vines with the mouths on the end and everything, but they would just sing. So I don't know. I want to say that Biollante's got Audrey 2 beat, but man, I mean, can you imagine Biollante versus Kaiju Audrey 2? That I don't know who's winning that.
I mean, if they're fighting, then Biollante. If it's a sing-off or a karaoke night,
Kaiju karaoke.
Then Levi's taking him down. I'm sorry. It's gotta be Audrey in that case.
Now, here's a fun fact. So we're marveling at this thing on the screen. Biollante is on the island. We generally leave her alone. She's crabby, to say the least. Yeah. You leave her alone. But did you guys ever hear what happened to that illustrious prop? Oh, Danny, do you know Kim?
I know the story.
I think I know the story.
What's the story?
I don't know.
It became a home for stray cats.
Oh, I do know this one.
Yeah. They dragged it outside. They left it behind the warehouse, and nature took its toll. And this bunch of stray cats on the Toho lot had kittens inside of it. Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Not great.
Can you imagine finding kittens in Biollante?
I couldn't imagine.
That would be a dream come true for me. My favorite kaiju and kittens.
She's not wrong. You're not wrong.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy enough just to walk around the corner and find that prop laying there. And it was a suit. It should be mentioned, like it was mostly puppeteered from above, but it was a suit. Yeah. There was a person in it.
There was a guy inside of at least the rose form. I'm going to find his name here really quick because suit actors need more love.
Yes, I do not recall his name. Be sure to interrupt me with that when you find it, because his name needs to be spoken.
You don't need to remind me to interrupt people.
The cats living in Biollante. I wish there were photos of that. There are no photos that I know of, but it is apparently true, and obviously that prop no longer exists. There are parts of the suit and various props that are still around that make occasional appearances at tokusatsu museums and exhibits and traveling shows and things like that. But yeah, it's sad to think that huge, beautiful thing is it's no more, and they just kind of left it outside and let it rot. I mean, the cats were probably fine with it, but the film historian part of me is mourning the loss of that beautiful construction. It's too bad. It really is. But yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
That's not
well, I mean, the Godzilla suit, the Godzilla suit in this famously was stolen a few years later.
I was just going to mention that.
Yes, it was stolen, and it showed up on a beach, and it scared an old woman to death. Not literally, but she did have a bit of a start, because just imagine you're an old woman, you're walking down the beach in Japan, and you see Godzilla coming out of the water on the beach. But he's just laying there like dead and kind of flat.
Is that where deflated. The meme came from?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Godzilla had a stroke reading this.
I mean, it's right up there with like I took a picture at G-Fest actually that had that massive Godzilla statue, and they were tearing it down, and there was just the upper body sitting there with the head just flying back, looked like it was screaming.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think I actually posted that online. It's a crazy caption. This.
There you go. Do we have a name yet? Do we have a name?
I do not, unfortunately. I'm trying.
Come on, Jimmy. Jimmy, you're our only hope.
It's in my notes. I am looking. Let's something else that while I'm looking that up, I'm trying to think. Let me go back and check my previous notes. So I'll find us something to talk about while I continue my search. So we talked about the design, genetics.
Let's talk about
the score.
Oh, you know what? Okay, fine.
Let's talk about the score by Koichi Sugiyama. This is the only time he composed for a Godzilla movie. This is a much like, help me, Danny, who composed for Return of Godzilla?
Reijiro Kuroku.
Yeah. Much like him, he has a very distinct score. It's a little bit more pop inspired. He does some remixes famously of some Fukabe Fukabe tracks, which apparently upset him, from what I understand.
I think he specifically asked them not to do that, and then they did. They did
it anyway. Yeah, he was not pleased, and so he had criticisms of that. But the most famous track, I would say, from this is BioWars, which you heard while Danny was regaling us with his plot synopsis. Wow, what a banger, I gotta say. It was actually a meme for a while to just say, like, BioWars goes with anything.
Because it does.
It's that and the Guile theme. But what do you guys think of the score in this movie?
It's unique. I love it. They did an excellent job. Yeah, it's memorable, and it's catchy.
It's haunting.
It is haunting.
It is very haunting at points. It reminds me a little bit of some of the scores from the 80s Star Trek films. I'm trying to remember who... Jerry Goldsmith.
There's a Goldsmith in this, I would say. It's got a little Goldsmith. It's got a little John Williams. There's a recurring motif for Godzilla that does have a dun 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 dun, a little bit of Jaws. Many years ago, I was listening to the soundtrack for this film, especially the opening piece where it does have the dun 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 da da da. You know, that piece. Mm-hmm. And I think it was my dad walked in and he goes, "You're listening to Jaws? You're listening to the Jaws soundtrack?" Like, as it turns out, Father, I am not. But I can.
You were very formal.
You could be forgiven, Father. I regret to inform you, you are incorrect in your assumption. Actually, I said, Dad, you're wrong. But you could be forgiven because there are some parts and that sound like that. There are some. It's a very eclectic score where you jump from the hard rock of BioWars to kind of more high flutes for the Seradian theme, and then you get the very kind of bombastic dun 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 dun.
Yeah, like the hero theme. Sounds a little Superman-ish.
And then
it's for the Super X2.
Super X2, and then you get some of the action music, which almost has like a cartoony vibe to it in some cases. So you can
and let's not forget the
yep. You know what I'm talking about.
Speaking of cartoons, let's not forget about the infamous sound effect.
Oh, I love that part so much. It's so funny. Like he just casually walks up to the guy and just go bang.
I love it.
It smacks Borat on the top of his head. And boom.
By the way, were we looking for the name of the actor who did Biollante's first form?
You found it. Yay.
Yes.
You beat me to it. You out-researched me.
Haha. I thought researched you, Mr. Marchand. So Biollante's first form was played by Takegami Akio.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and Biollante's second form, Shigeru Shibasaki and Yoshitaka Kimura, according to Wikizilla.
I found mine and it said it was a guy named Takagami, so I'm a little confused.
There is Takagami for the first form.
Yeah.
Takagami.
Okay, that's good.
The only one who really knows is Biollante herself, and she rotted with cats living in her stomach, so she is not taking questions right now, unfortunately.
No, you could ask the real Biollante, but like I said, you want to leave her alone. Anyway.
Which is a bummer because I was kind of hoping that maybe Kim and I could meet Biollante in person.
Just be very nice to her.
Okay, so is that a yes?
I don't make those decisions. But Miki works on the island. Maybe she can set something up for you.
That's fair. Actually, I've talked with Miki before. Maybe I'll track her down and see if she can hook us up.
Yeah. Anyway, so going back to the score, Mr. Sugiyama was known for doing video games, most notably at this point Dragon Quest, and he was not the first choice. I think Tanaka had someone else in mind, Hiroshi Miyagawa, who famously did Space Battleship Yamato.
He would have been a good call.
Yeah.
But then BioWars wouldn't have existed, you guys. BioWars.
Right?
I know. I'm just saying. It goes with anything. It's BioWars.
It's BioWars.
Yeah. It's BioWars.
It's BioWars.
Hashtag it's BioWars.
Hashtag it's BioWars.
Hashtag it's BioWars. By the way, did anyone notice that if you want that this is rated PG for traditional Godzilla violence?
I love that.
That sounded very Elijah of you.
Which was invented for the DVD. That is not on the tape. That is not what it was originally rated for.
It was rated PG, but
it was rated PG, but it wasn't rated PG like for anything specific on the case. But when the DVD came out almost 10 years ago now, wow. Yeah, for traditional Godzilla violence, and I remember getting quite a kick out of that. I love that. I think that's it's so great.
Even though there's lots of other not Godzilla violence in this, but
yeah.
But speaking of not Godzilla violence, we need to talk. Huh?
Violence. The guy who got boomed on the head. That's violence.
Yeah.
Boom.
But speaking of not Godzilla violence, we're going to talk about the characters, of which there are a lot.
There's a heck of a cast in this thing.
There is a lot because we've got the introduction of Miki. That's the most important one, I would say, overall in this. She's 17 in this. So there's Megumi Odaka, wonderful woman. I had the privilege of meeting her in real life. She's fresh.
Same.
She got into Toho as like their, what did they call it, Danny? Like their fresh face
program. It was like the
newcomer program. Like she was
the newcomers program. I remember.
Yeah, she was in Princess from the Moon for Toho a few years before this. That was her screen debut.
She was nominated for a Japan Academy Prize for that role.
Yep, and the movie is owned by Criterion, and they continue to not release it.
Rude.
Come on, Criterion, put it on Blu-ray. You know you want to. Give me that booklet. Give me that commentary track.
It might be on the podcast. I'm just saying.
Oh, it needs to be on the podcast. I don't care if there's only a monster in it for 15 seconds. It just should be on the podcast.
Well, dude. If somebody, I said for like Patreon sponsored episodes that like even if it's only tangentially related, I will cover it, which is my excuse for saying, like, if you want to ask for Kurosawa, I will cover Kurosawa, but give me an excuse. Anyway, so we have a bunch of characters. So Miki's the most important one. Miki in this, she's young, she's extremely quiet, she's kind of mysterious. She only has a handful of lines, and I think that's by design in this. I don't know if they had made the decision quite yet to turn her into the recurring character. I don't know. Does she feel like she was meant to come back, or is she just supposed to be part of this ensemble?
I'm not quite sure if there were any plans to have her be recurring. I doubt it. But her last moment of staring, at least retroactively, staring at Godzilla as he gets up at the end and the camera kind of moves around her face and you can see her watching Godzilla leave. The feeling I'm always left with is like this feeling of knowing on her part that her journey with Godzilla isn't over yet. And I don't know if that was intentional from the perspective of them wanting to bring her back later, but knowing that she eventually becomes the main recurring character of these films. She's not the main character of all the films, but she eventually she becomes the through line. And I
don't think she really achieves main character status until things Space Godzilla. But
Space Godzilla is when she gets to shine. But at least retroactively looking back on it, that moment has a lot of promise to it. Like, our journey has just begun between the two of us, Godzilla. Like, we're going to see each other again. So whether that was intentional or not, it's nice to look back on it and see that. But right. I don't know.
Yeah. What about you, Kim? You're a pretty big fan of Miki, aren't you?
I am. She's pretty much the Godzilla whisperer, and I always like that aspect about her character. And unfortunately, she doesn't get developed really well in later films, but here she's fine. But yeah.
I mean, she has that really great moment on the helipad.
She does.
I actually read a chapter of a book, I think it was Japan's Green Monsters, where they actually argued that put her on par with the Shobijin, and she's this shift away from temptresses that had always been in these movies, and she's able to deter Godzilla when the quote-unquote male-dominated military couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's girl power?
It's definitely psychic power, if nothing else.
Yeah, for sure.
True story. Yeah.
Yeah, true story. Unfortunately, she lost those powers later, but
Yeah, they kind of faded away after a while.
yeah, sad. But at least here, her powers are fairly well defined.
For the most part. I mean, she has prophetic dreams. She can sense Godzilla when he's awake and when he's moving. She can sense what Biollante is thinking. Yeah, she can hear she's the only person who can hear the human soul calling out from the plant. And it's unclear how much she understands of Godzilla. Probably not that much, but she can definitely stop him, which is interesting. Yeah, she can deter him for sure. Yeah.
For 30 seconds.
They even say she gave off as much energy as Godzilla. No wonder she passed out. I'm telling you, Omega level mutant here. Considering she's basically a kid doing this, that's amazing. That's craziness that she was able to do that. And it definitely establishes her as being more powerful than you might imagine. You know what I mean? Wow, she's got some serious power to her. And it does make you interested to see what else she could do. That's another thing that's interesting about this film is this film throws psychics into the mix. We were talking about everything but the kitchen sink, Omori. This movie's got psychics. It firmly establishes psychics as part of the universe of Godzilla. It's getting into the paranormal here, although I would argue the Godzilla series had dabbled in the paranormal before this. I mean, come on. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster with the disembodied aliens, is kind of paranormal.
Oh, absolutely. So it had been there before, but this is an entirely different thing because now we have this weaponized psionic stuff going on, which works
with the psionic exploitation center. Guys, you need to workshop that name
a little bit.
I feel like that's a typo, friends. There's a typo on the side of your building. Let's
hope. Although I did notice a fair amount of minor typos in the subs for this. There's still better subs than the Cleopatra Shin Ultraman disc.
Anyway, there it is. Come on, man. Come on.
It is my new whipping boy. I'm sorry. It is my new whipping boy. But anyway, so other characters. So does anybody else besides Miki, because Miki has franchise clout for her, does anyone else really stand out? Gondo.
Goro Gondo.
I was just going to say Goro.
Goro Gondo. Sarcastic. Very he's the comic relief of the film without being goofy.
Played by Toru Minagishi.
I love this dude. I love this dude.
Minagishi. There you go.
He's so funny. He's not without being slapsticky or goofy or in the Frankie Sakai mold. He's not like that. But he's got the quips. He's got his cool sunglasses. He's the guy who 2 seconds before Godzilla escapes, smiles, shrugs his shoulders, and says, "Amen." He
thinks he's in an action movie.
He does because he is in a way, and he because he makes it an action movie around him. He has a couple of great lines about just kind of being. I love his character because he's bored. He's been waiting around for Godzilla to wake up for 5 years, and he's like, I hope everybody else is panicking, and he goes, frankly, I hope he does wake up because I'm not going to have a job if he doesn't wake up.
Yeah, as he sits around with a giant Godzilla 62 figure in his little shack while lifting weights, because that's all he's got.
Yeah, he has that great line, at least in the dub, of the most fun he has around that office. 5 years waiting for Godzilla to wake up is competing to see who can kill more mosquitoes.
Yeah, that's in the dub. Yeah.
That's in the dub.
And I wanted to bring that up because his big action hero moment at the end when he pulls a beast from 20,000 fathoms and shoots Godzilla in the mouth with a bazooka with the anti-nuclear energy bacteria, which definitely plays into the environmentalist theme and the typical nuclear anxieties that Japan has, but also into all the genetic stuff, because it's weaponized genetics at this point, which is a big shift for this franchise. I mean, Biollante was created intentionally, not by accident, because anytime we had stuff like this before, it was all by accident. But anyway, I honestly the dub in this was made by Omni Productions, which has a mixed track record, shall we say.
Reputation.
Yeah, spotty reputation. But there are points where I do think they do excel because I haven't seen this subbed as much as I have dubbed. So the dub line, some of these dub lines are just embedded in my head. And so there's the one where he shoots him. And I think in Japanese, he says something about taking medicine orally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm trying to remember. It was kind of long and involved, I have to say. Let me find it real quick. But the dub line was he tells him to stop. He needs to quit smoking.
It's the opposite. He says all this intravenous
stuff is bad for you. Stick to smoking.
Stick to smoking. That's what it was. Smoking.
And then he dies, and the plot of Space Godzilla becomes possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because his death has implications for a later film. Hey, Heisei continuity is awesome.
Yay.
I'm just gonna say it. I love it.
That's one of the reasons I like the Heisei era is because of the continuity.
I love that. Actually, I've talked to a lot of fans who don't like the Heisei movies because of the continuity.
Oh, Bill.
So you can't please everyone, I guess. But I love it.
I actually thought in retrospect the continuity could be better, but
I mean, yeah, it could have been done better, but I still
here it is. Yeah, here it is. Medicine. This was the subline. Medicine works better when you take it orally.
So is he telling Godzilla to like eat his Flintstones vitamins or something?
I think so. That's basically what he's saying.
His favorite is probably Dino.
I mean, naturally. So Kim, you were saying about the continuity.
Like, yeah, I like the continuity. It doesn't have to, be just like one standalone film like the Millennium era basically is, except for that one duology. Except for that one duology. But
but they were trying to do something different.
And I like it. I like the tight continuity. I think a big part of what helps that is not just Miki coming back, and obviously Destroya's got some major bookend continuity, but we also have the consistency of the Godzilla design moving forward. Yeah, it changes in subtle ways, but for the most part, this is the standard basic Godzilla look that we're going to get until Destroya, minus the burning patches. It's still the same form.
Oh, for a second, I thought you were going to say -1.
-1. There, I said it. You happy? I said it.
Because this is in the future.
Yes. This is in the future.
In the future.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey
stuff. Anyway, so there's that. And we've talked about Dr. Shiragami. We've talked about Erika, but there's not, is there anything we can say about Erika that you guys aren't, the reason that your short film is going to exist, Kim, is because they don't do a lot with her.
Exactly. So that's what we're gonna do.
She basically gets fridged so that Dr. Shiragami can turn into Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, basically.
Dr. Shiragami Stein.
Dr. Shiragami Stein.
Dr. Shiragami Stein. I love it.
It doesn't really roll off the tongue, but it does have a nice ring to it. I will say that.
Yeah.
We have our kind of. This is an ensemble film. I wouldn't necessarily say there's a main character. You couldn't even really call Shiragami the main character. Kirishima has a lot of lines. I find Kirishima to be a fascinating character because in one scene he's a geneticist, but a lot of his scenes are him poo-pooing genetic science. Mm-hmm. And he's
talking about moving to America.
He's not poo-pooing the institution. He's poo-pooing it going at it being used for bad purposes, the balance of power in the world being offset.
Mm-hmm. There's a line from the CEO of that genetics company, because that's a big thing in this too. The villains move away from shady governments and aliens and things like that to corrupt corporations in this. They're the ones who are engaging in terrorism. It's not governments. No, it's corporations who are doing things like, do what we say or we release Godzilla with our explosives. Guys, what?
What are you talking about?
Yeah,
I do like a Koichi too. I'll throw him in there. He's one of the quote unquote villains of the piece. He's always wandering around laughing at his own bad jokes. He's got a towel around his neck when you first meet him, and obviously he's the greatest character ever because he has the Godzilla cells.
The Godzilla cells.
Yeah, that's the guy, and that's also the guy who, that's the guy who gave the cells to the guy.
Shiragami.
Yeah. Yep. To Shiragami, and he said this line that some people I read said that this was showing that the Godzilla series was moving in a more modern, they would say, nationalistic stance on things, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but he said Japan has suffered the devastation brought by nuclear bombers and Godzilla. It's only right that we should have a weapon that can protect us from our enemies. which sounds very anti-Article 9, if you know anything about Japanese politics.
And it's perhaps just as well that he does not get his way at the end, because if you'll remember, the minute Godzilla goes down, poisoned by the ANEB, his first thought is harvest time. And he looks at Shiragami and he says, "You have all the cells you could ever want to work with now. We got to get cracking on this. We got to start getting skin samples." And of course, Shiragami is like, actually, and hear me out on this. No. How about no? How about no?
Yep.
No,
and did we mention the younger? I can't remember his name. The younger guy who's in charge of Super X2.
Well, we have to talk about him. We have to talk about Kuroki. Lieutenant Kuroki, played by
he's pretty cool.
Played by Masanobu Takashima, son of Tadao Takashima from Godzilla, King Kong vs. Godzilla, son of Godzilla, Atragon, and brother of Masahiro, aka Mr. Pteranodon Boy.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yes, they were brothers.
The man who played the man who gave you your robot.
This is true. And it is also worth noting that Kuroki does come back in Godzilla vs. Destroya, but he is played by his brother in that film. So it's a different actor, but it's kind of hard to, I mean, it's easy to tell the difference because if you know the movies and you know that these actors, but they are very similar looking. They're twin brothers. So they have a very similar look when you put them into the same costume. So they were able to basically pull off a bait and switch in Destroya and say, well, this is that character, but his brother's playing him in real life. But Masanobu does a pretty great job in this film. He is multiple times his youth is referenced. When he's first introduced, he walks in, he looks like he's like this kind of fresh-faced, kid in a uniform. And when the general walks up to him, he makes a somewhat snide remark about, like, did they hand the Super X program off to some kind of youth division? Like, I see they're hiring kids now, kind of thing. But he is so determined in this film, and he's given so many scenes. He takes the job of running the anti-Godzilla operation so seriously, and he's just always leaning over a table at some point in this movie. And one moment. Yeah,
this is this also solidified the Heisei trope of everyone looking at screens.
Yes, we do have the screens. We have the screens in this one. And there were screens in Return of Godzilla as well, and in Destroy All Monsters and
anyway, moving on. So Kuroki.
He's great.
Yeah, I was going to say apparently he needs to be Elijah's new hero. It's
what? Why? Because he never sleeps?
No, because he's the young guy everyone picks on, but he's the coolest guy in the room.
Oh yeah.
I don't pick on Elijah.
You picked on him during the live stream about G.
Did I pick on him?
Yes.
I don't remember that. And Elijah, if you're listening, I'm sorry I picked on you. I feel like I did. I feel like Nate is making this up to try to make me look bad. But,
what are you talking about? He's not going to listen to this. Not for like 5 years, but
he's got a backlog to get through.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, and then we have SSS-9, the Seradian agent, who famously says, "What?
Well, kiss you guys."
I don't understand this line. What even is this? I feel like
in the dub it's "thanks you guys," which makes a little more sense.
That makes more sense. But it's like right at the beginning of the movie, he guns down we have these Americans who show up, steal Godzilla cells, then they gun down Japanese people, which doesn't. Not great optics for the Americans, especially according to some of the essays I looked at. And then suddenly Mr. SSS-9 is just like, haha, I'm better than all of you because I watched Terminator. Can you tell? Look at my fashion. And then he just guns them all down.
It would have been so funny.
Says, kiss you.
It would have been so funny if he had gunned them down and then walked up and actually went, haha. Like, you're dead now. You can't hear me. Ha ha. I'll take these now. Ha ha.
Ha I've won. Ha
ha. I'm going back.
That would require that he have more personality.
He's basically just a walking, like he's like a walking sniper, and he snipes those guys at close range. Like he's not messing around.
And then gets taken out by one of our Japanese characters at the. Who was it? You mentioned him.
Kuroki takes him out.
No, it wasn't Kuroki. It was the scientist guy.
Kurashima fights him.
Yeah, fights him at the end. Fights him at the end. And then because apparently he's Batman, because that's what his girlfriend says. It's like, you were like Batman. I'm like,
Superman. She said, you were great, Superman.
You were great, Superman. And he was like, yeah, I need to go to the dry cleaner. I am covered in mud. Like, rolling in the mud.
So he's just always just wandering around, causing havoc, sniping people and stealing things, and looking like he's Schwarzenegger, like he's Arnold from the Terminator or Stallone from Cobra. I mean, it's like,
and he drives around in what is not, but almost tricked me as a kid into thinking it was a DeLorean.
It is definitely not a DeLorean.
Well, it's clearly not a DeLorean, but it had the same general profile, and I'm a huge Back to the Future junkie. Yeah. And as a kid, I saw that. I'm like, oh my God, what? Oh.
Yeah.
No,
now, here's the thing that I still need to figure out, because here's the thing that's kind of annoying. The "kiss you guys" is not subtitled if you watch it in Japanese. And I'm just like, wait a minute. I need to know where the comma is. This is... So is it "kiss you guys" as in I'm going to kiss you guys, or kiss, comma, you guys, as if he's telling the corpses to kiss each other?
Either way, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
If this does not illustrate the importance of commas, then I don't know what does. Oh my God. Grammar is important, everyone.
I personally am leaning toward the comma, because if that's the case, it does sound like a really weird taunt. Still doesn't make sense.
I don't
of
know
all the things you could say. Like you could say like, haha, I got you, or haha, or anything but that.
Eat lead.
How dare you say that to us,
Jimmy? What
is wrong with you today?
Canceled.
Why you just got canceled by the Queen? Congratulations. You need to switch back to your new mic, man. I'm just saying, okay? It's just
Jimbo, I love you, man, but you earned the cancellation on that one. It was bound to happen at some point.
Although I was going to suggest that maybe we just need to bring this back, you know? Next time I play video games and I kill everybody, I'm just going to say, "Kiss you guys."
And everybody will think you're deranged. Yeah,
that's a great time.
I just went to the new Kiss concert, you guys. Maybe that's what it was. He was bragging to the corpses about the tickets, and he was like, "After I kill you guys, I'm heading to the States, gonna go watch Kiss."
I kiss you guys.
I got
tickets to Kiss you guys.
I just stole the G cells, and now I'm gonna take the money and go see Kiss you guys.
Maybe that's why he thought that the container had Kiss tickets.
Yes, he wasn't there for the G cells at all. He's just a big Gene Simmons fan, and he wanted to.
There it is. That's the one.
I mean, Godzilla's got a Gene Simmons tongue in this movie. I mean,
he does. He does.
You're right. Never
Did I just ruin it for you? Anyway,
yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Moving on.
It's over.
Yeah.
Enough of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Who else is in this? I mean, there were a couple of more tertiary characters. We have Kirishima and his girlfriend.
You had Mike. Was it John Lees and Michael something or other?
Yeah,
the two guys who are apparently you would think the two guys who speak English and can't speak it well, like they speak it worse than the Japanese.
Like, buddy? What are you?
We are Lethal Weapon. What the heck are you talking about?
That's just Kazuki Omori slipping the names of movies he likes.
Yeah, it's not as crass as some of the ones that are later, like in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Somebody literally says, one of the Japanese characters says, "Go ahead, make my day," and then blows up stuff in the spaceship.
It's silly. This movie is as great as it is. It definitely stands as a prime, if not the prime example of the fact that if you watch a lot of the latter Godzilla films, especially the Heisei movies, and you're watching them in Japanese, it becomes crystal clear that they hired the non-Japanese actors, heavy air quotes on actors, not because they were actors, but because they weren't Japanese. They hired them because they needed American people to play
Kiss you
American
guys.
characters. Yeah, they needed people who weren't Japanese to play the American and Middle Eastern characters. And these people, hey, they've been in more Godzilla movies than I have, so kudos to them. But they're not actors. They're not actors. And so I think the dub actually helps in a lot of cases like that. Like
because they dub over them to make them sound better.
They dub over them because in Biollante, there are some moments where the non-Japanese actors are speaking what I think they thought was English, but I can't understand a word they're saying. I can't.
What was it? The John Lee's guy, he mumbles things.
He mumbles.
I'm like, huh?
What is it again, sir?
What did you say? What did you
Come
say?
again?
Huh? He also makes weird banter about the girls, and I'm like, those lines are kind of stupid. It's she's not a bad sign. I'm like,
hey, this ain't a beauty contest,
This ain't a beauty contest, like freaking Goofy in the backseat. You're right, man. I'm gonna be creepy. Like, God, those guys. That alone, if you weren't a fan of them before, you definitely aren't going to be a fan of them after that. Sitting there creeping on people, and then you had to go and be bad actors on top of it. Come on, seriously.
Yeah,
no excuse for you. But yeah,
no excuse for you.
No excuse for you.
No excuse.
No excuse. But again, bless them. They were in a Godzilla movie. They were doing their best, but not great actors. Sorry, not great actors.
Sorry. No. But we've covered a lot, but there's also still a lot that we could get into. I'm just trying to think what are some big things that we need to make sure we talk about. I want to talk about the dude who makes the cameo, who looks like Japanese Dracula.
Oh, that guy.
I wanted for a long time. I'm like, I want to see more of this guy. Can this guy have a movie? I'm like, who is this guy? And I actually found out who he is. He's actually predictably a member of a band.
Mm-hmm. Kiss you guys.
Kiss you guys.
Japanese Kiss. Yeah, he was a personality. He was in a band. That was his shtick.
Yep, that was his shtick. Yeah, he was in a band. Good Lord, this is one of the most edgelord sounding bands I have ever seen.
Oh boy.
His band was the Holy Clan of Evil.
Not evil, but evil.
No, I'm just saying it that way. But yeah, and his name is
great.
His name is Singer Demon Kogure.
Kogure, that's his name.
Kogure. The main he was the vocalist, and he waged a campaign to be in a Godzilla movie. Dang it.
He done got it. He done did it.
Well, you know how he did it? It says he did it he started doing it by winning first prize in a quote unquote Godzilla Scream competition in 1984. Like, this guy campaigned for 5 years to get into a Godzilla movie.
He had his 12 and a half seconds of fame. He did it. He got in again. Dude's been in one more Godzilla movie than I've been in.
Mm-hmm.
My God.
And it says they said the singer used his radio show to address Toho repeatedly to appear in a Godzilla.
He got on the radio and was like, listen, all you little people at Toho, you're going to let me in your movie, or, well, there's going to be a lot of evil going on, and you're going to let me do this thing. That's funny.
Yeah, and it said late in filming, he got his wish. He got his cameo. And I'm like, I got to say, he's one of the most standout characters in the entire thing. I'm like, I need more about this guy. What is this guy do? What is he doing on TV? I'm just picturing him. He's like Japanese Svengoolie.
Yeah, like it would have been funny if he was like a horror host.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he's like a horror host. He looks like a horror host.
I'm here to show you Varan, but not the one you're familiar with. I'm going to show you this weird one from America with Myron Haley in it. It's like 59 minutes long and makes no sense.
You're kidding me? They're giving him a show on the island?
Wait a minute. What? Jimmy.
What?
Jimmy.
What?
Jimmy,
listen. When were you going to tell me this news?
Is this new? When is this happening? He's already done his first concert and we missed it.
Oh man.
Are you kidding? Oh, Jimbo.
But no,
Jimbo.
Wait, is he just is he just doing a concert? They're giving him a TV show?
What?
You're okay. Can us lowly plebs in the United States get this show?
I want it.
I would totally watch this.
Like, what channel is it on? Like,
they're still working it out. Of course they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Contractual obligations and all of that fun
course.
stuff. Remember
So
when I
Jimbo,
used to say that all the time? And
I do. I miss it? Question mark?
anyway, like I said, there's a lot that we could go into. I have a few more things that I want to go over. I'm going to get a few fun facts out of the way about this film. But first off being, did you know Toho sued Miramax over this?
Toho said no ho to Miramax.
I actually don't know if I know this story.
You don't? How do you, of all people, not know this?
Well, why don't you make me feel bad after you tell me what happened?
Well, it should be noted, Miramax released this on video and on HBO in November 25th, 1992. So 3 years after it was out in Japan. And as I think it was David Callett put it, they said, with much respect but little fanfare, basically.
True.
So they just put it out. And I'm just like, can you imagine coming across this on HBO one night? And there it is. And so, yeah, here's what I got this is from Wikipedia. Quote, in early 1990, Toho entered discussions with Miramax to distribute the film. When talks broke off, Toho filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles federal court accusing Miramax of entering an oral agreement in June to pay Toho $500,000 to distribute the film. This lawsuit delayed the film's release for 2 years. An out-of-court settlement was reached with Miramax buying the rights to the film for an unreported figure. Miramax would have entertained thoughts of releasing the film in theaters.
I didn't know any of this. My mind is blown. I didn't know any of this. How did I not know that? That is so cool. It's cool, but the story is not cool, but now I know a thing I didn't know.
I may have to. Cool. I may have to ask my friend Raymond if he was involved with this case. That would be interesting.
Raymond is slowly starting to approach Jimmy territory when it comes to him just talking about every. Apparently, Raymond was involved with every case ever, and I'm starting to think he makes things up.
I'm starting to wonder too. I mean, the man talks like he's from the 1920s, so.
Yeah, I bumped into him on the way up here, and he told me he liked the cut of my jib, and I'm a little worried about what that means, but I'm interpreting it as a compliment. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't. Okay, here's another one. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about Super X2, which is basically Super X1, but with a giant mirror made out of quote unquote synthetic diamond, and I'm like, what, cubic zirconium? No wonder it melted.
No, we got to talk about Super X2 for just a second here.
Yeah, we
Super
should.
X2.
The theme is good.
Yes, the theme is good. Kim, I have it on good authority that the Super X2 is your favorite character in all of fiction. So
lies.
Who's getting canceled now? Whoever's spreading these lies shall be canceled by the Queen of the Fabulous Empire.
The Queen of the Fabulous Empire.
That's right. No, Super X is cool. Super X2 is neat.
Is it full of turtle meat?
It is not full of turtle. I hate to burst your bubble. It is not full of turtle meat. It is full of meat, but it is not full of turtle meat.
No, it can't be full of meat because nobody pilots it. It's remotely piloted by a guy who looks like he's having a very intense time at the local arcade.
That's the guy from Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah.
Yes.
That doesn't surprise me.
That's him. Mm-hmm. That's him. I like it. It's actually it's a little bit more successful in some regards than the Super X, but in other regards, not as successful because let's be real here. The Super X, the original, took Godzilla down with the cadmium. It took him down. It would have probably won if not for the radiation blast in the atmosphere. They got him. Unfortunately, the Super X2 is just fundamentally flawed because the synthetic diamond in the fire in the mirror is just not strong enough. It's going to melt. It's not gonna last. It does have a leg up because it's, remote controlled. That's nice. No people are gonna die in this thing, but it was doomed to failure from the start. I
think they've depended too much on the fire mirror. Like just kind of like use that over and over, and that just kind of became their downfall.
That's a good observation.
Yeah,
I like that
for sure.
Because,
you would think the fire mirror would have been more effective if it's reflecting Godzilla's ray back.
Yeah.
Well, they built it to the utmost in specifications that modern man could build a synthetic diamond in a time travel shenanigans Heisei universe, because think about it. Mechagodzilla 2 is coated in synthetic diamond, and it's better later on.
True.
And if you think, Mecha King Ghidorah probably was too. That's probably where they got the tech. So they probably combined the future tech with the Super X2 fire mirror tech, and they got this really, really strong Mechagodzilla diamond sheeting. And the only reason that failed is because Rodan made Godzilla super warm and it melted it.
Yeah.
There you go. So connections.
Of course you have opinions about this thing's design.
You know what, Jim? You know what? Hang on. Jimmy, enlighten us. Enlighten us, Jimmy. Tell us. Wait, hang on. You have a problem with there not being people in it? I know. Yes, I know you were a pilot in the War in Space, Jimmy. You talk about it all the time, Jimmy. I know that you like piloting. I would think, Jimbo, that you of all people, considering that you died and all, would be up for there not being human casualties or pilots, right? Okay, you know what? I know you didn't actually die. I'm glad if it makes you feel better, I'm glad you didn't die. We're friends. I would have not had a friend otherwise. But listen, I don't even know why we're talking about this. You said you had problems with the design. This isn't design. This is function. All right.
You don't want to talk about it. Okay, fine. Of
course.
I think that's his way of saying get back to what we're talking about, because
it's his way of saying I won the debate.
I suppose. Yeah, he just wants us to get back on topic. Yeah.
No, he's right.
So one other thing, this actually has a first. This is the first use of a 70mm camera in a Japanese film for composites, which was something that cinematographer Katsuhiro Kato felt very accomplished about. He had to borrow cameras to do it.
As he should feel accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he said previous cameras were too unstable. Couldn't do it. So, and I think one of them is the establishing shot of the rose form of Biollante. I know that was one time that they used it.
And that was a traveling matte as well. That was a moving matte shot, which was something that Kawakita tried to do a lot more of as the series went on. He would move the camera with the matting, which is in a pre-digital editing world, that is a pretty impressive. Look at the way that the camera shakes in Space Godzilla whenever Godzilla walks, and the matte line is the grass on Birth Island. That's impressive. But the panning shot in this film, up from the dock with the people on it to the Biollante rose, is so seamless.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful shot. There's a lot of beautiful shots in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's why several people that when I was researching it, said that this was the quote unquote most poetic movie of the franchise. I mean, I get that. I do think it, with some of the stuff that Kobayashi had in his previous treatments, it might have been even more poetic.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Fun fact, this will be related to the stuff with the Human Genome Project, but in 1991, a journalist named Alan Lacey wrote an article for the New York Times about scientists creating a blue rose by splicing petunia DNA, and apparently people freaked out about it. Interesting thought here from Japan's Green Monsters. One of the things that I really like with the world building in this is they have the memorial that goes back to 84, and it's one of the buildings that was damaged by Godzilla, and they said that this is an example of memories becoming memorials, referencing back to the atomic bombings. I thought, okay, that's an interesting thing. Here's one that I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this before we went on the air. I told you guys about this, and you're like, tell us more. And I'm like, save it for the show. Biollante's name.
Ah, yes.
Biollante's name. Because they say in the movie that it comes from Norse mythology. I can't begin to tell you how obsessed I was as a kid to try to confirm that.
Lies.
Me too.
And it's not entire... I mean, there are nature deities in Norse mythology. Yeah, but there's no figure called Biollante. However, Mr. Steve Rifle thinks that Biollante was named after Violan, I hope I said that right, who was a quote-unquote mythological Norse nymph, a nature spirit. Like, okay. Okay. But the most interesting one, which is what I teased the two of you with, was it comes from a French poem. Prepare your brains for a razzle dazzle. So,
Oh, dear.
So, from what I read, Mr. Kobayashi got the name from a French poem, and I'm probably going to horribly butcher this. Chanson de Automne. How do you even say this? Is there a way to hear but it means autumn song. And it's written by Paul Verlaine, and it was in the 1800s. And it comes from a specific line in French. Let me make sure I can find it here, which is Des violons de l'automne. And
That's probably
the way Kobayashi did is he took violin, and then combined it with the katakana te, which isn't very common in monster names, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
And that word means violin.
Interesting.
Biollante playing a violin.
Can we use that?
Can we use that? I was about to say it. Darn it. I wasn't fast enough. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. But in case you want to hear, the poem has an interesting history. It was actually quoted a lot in World War II to send messages to Special Operations Executive to the French resistance. To let them know about the invasion of Normandy. So I won't read it in French to you, but I can read you a translation. You'll probably lose a little bit of the impact with the translation, but the translation reads as the long sobs of violins of autumn, that's where the name comes from for Biollante, wound my heart with a monotonous languor, all breathless and pale when the hour sounds. I remember the old days, and I cry, and I go in the ill wind that carries me here, there, like the dead leaf.
Can we use that?
Yes, actually. That was okay. Yeah, that was good.
That was good. That was really good.
And like, how did I not
beautiful.
find out about this before? I will say I discovered this on Wikizilla, and they do have a source listed for this.
Okay.
So this isn't some crazy weirdo writing random stuff on here. It has a cited source.
I'm fascinated. I love finding interesting literary, poetic connections to Godzilla. And one of the reasons is because I like to pick things like that out to start my Godzilla novelization project books. I try to start them with quotes.
Well, there you go. You just quote the poem when you start.
I might, but I don't know. I feel like it might have a better home than that. You know,
You could start Erika with it.
That's what I'm alluding to. That's what I'm alluding to. I think that splashes up on the screen. And that's the beginning.
I love it. That's beautiful.
This is live workshopping for the movie.
Yes.
All right. And then really quickly, I'm going to put out a few facts about the Human Genome Project because genetics was becoming such a big thing. So, this went on for years. I remember growing up still hearing about it. And so this was an international genetic research project started by the U.S. government in 1990, completed in 2003. But it was originally conceived in 1984. So even though it started after Biollante, they were talking about it before the movie. And by the way, I found out that there was actually, in 1982, a committee put together by the U.S. government that talked about the ethics of genetic manipulation, and they decided at the end of it that it was illicit and that creating hybrids elicited moral revulsion. So they basically said, nope, not going to do it.
Fair.
Not going to do it. So its goal was to map the sequence of the nucleotide base pairs that make up human DNA, and identifying all the genes of the human genome from both a physical and functional standpoint. And it was the world's largest collaborative biological project, with research conducted in 20 universities and research centers in the United States, United Kingdom, Japan, France, Germany, Canada, and China. But the funding in the U.S. came from the National Institutes of Health. They spent $3 billion on this.
Wow.
Yeah. And they managed, when it was all done, they managed to sequence 99% of the, I'm probably saying this wrong, any of the Monster Island scientists are going to write me angry letters, the euchromatic regions of the human genome, which makes up 92% of it. And this affected a lot of different fields. I won't list off all of them, but I'll just bring up some of them. So it's like, they could genotyping specific viruses for treatments, identification of mutations, like which have links to cancer.
Doesn't everything have links to cancer these days?
Yeah, basically. The design of medication and the prediction of their effects, forensics, biofuels, energy applications, agriculture, lots of different things. And it's even said that another possible benefit could be commercial development of genomics research related to DNA-based products, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So he said the three main findings from it were there are approximately 22,300 protein-coding genes in human beings, the same range as in other animals. The human genome has significantly more segmental duplications, nearly identical repeated sections of DNA than had been previously suspected. And number 3, at the time when the draft sequences were published, fewer than 7% of protein families appeared to be vertebrate specific. So there you go. Now, and I bring this up because it goes back to what we saw in this movie. There is a concern about the project mapping the genome, which is that this knowledge could be used by health insurance companies to refuse to hire people or refuse to provide insurance for people based on their genes. So, because of this, the U.S. Congress passed the Health Insurance Portability and Accessibility Act, or HIPAA, which protects against unauthorized and non-consensual release of individually identifiable health information to any entity not actively engaged in the provision of healthcare services to a patient. Basically, they could take this information and predict what kind of diseases you might be likely to have, and then you could be denied health insurance because of potential future diseases. So they made laws against that.
Good.
This is why health insurance makes sense. There's nothing confusing about it, right?
Yeah.
Not a thing.
Totally.
I mean, it's still less confusing than Jimmy.
Jimmy, what terrible language.
Good God. You kiss your mother with that mouth, Jimbo? Jeez. There are probably children. Well, I guess they can't really understand, but that's...
Yeah.
But still,
we can hear.
Children.
But kiss you guys.
For the children!
For the children! Kiss you guys. All right, like I said, I had 15 pages of notes, but we're getting a little long in the tooth. We need to wrap up, and a phone call? Hang up. Just hang up on him. Wait, you can't hang up on him? What's going on? Oh, no.
Hello there, Monster Island Film Vault. Nathan, are you there, Nathan?
Were you trying to call me earlier?
Why, yes, I was. Why didn't you answer my call?
Because I was in the middle of a broadcast with Kim.
Oh, yes, the illustrious Kaiju Kim. I used to watch your streaming show all the time, and in fact, I emailed you and asked to be a guest. Why didn't you respond to me?
Well, I just needed to take a break from the show. Actually, yeah, I got a little burnt out there, and think life happens.
Oh, I am sorry to hear that. I hope things get better for you soon, and if you ever decide to come back, well, just check your email. You know how to find me.
Oh dear. Okay.
Okay. But before Kim has to change her pants,
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Nothing. You don't have anything to say to me, there, buddy.
No, I'm afraid I don't have anything to say to you, my friend.
And why is that? Why is that? Have I offended you?
No, you haven't offended me.
Then why are you ignoring me? Why are you ignoring me?
I think you know why.
I actually don't.
You don't?
No, I don't. I have no idea.
I think you're lying.
I'm not lying. Hang on. Okay. Like, what possible reason could you have to be ignoring me right now?
Well, I'm just going to drop a hint.
You do that. This is driving me crazy. I want to know.
It involves the film that you're watching for this episode.
Biollante. Cool. Yeah. Okay. What about it?
Yeah. What about Biollante?
Yeah. What about it?
I thought that would be enough of a hint.
It's not enough of a hint.
It's not.
Clearly it's not, because I'm confused. What do you want from me, man?
Confusion.
Daniel promised me a copy of the film on Blu-ray. It's one of the only films I don't have in my collection, and you know I do love plant-based monster movies, and this one has been, shall we say, a little bit hard to track down. And he told me he'd give me an extra copy. And he hasn't.
I mailed it to you a month ago. Did it not show up?
Well, obviously I wouldn't be this, how do you say, miffed if it had shown up.
Dante, can I call you Dante? Have you checked your mailbox?
Well, naturally, yes.
Have you checked your parcel box?
Yes, of course. I have to go real quick. I'll call you back later. Don't go anywhere. Bye.
And we're done. Okay, I'm sorry you had to put up with.
If he calls back, don't answer.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I am so sorry, Kim. I'm so sorry. I'm starting to wonder if he's been infected with anti-nuclear energy bacteria, and
I would not be surprised.
I'm wondering. I'm starting to think the scientists need to study what that does to humans.
I am so sorry. I feel like that was partly my fault. I know he kind of calls in when plant monsters are on screen, but I really did mail him that Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I had an extra one 1,000 years ago. Somebody gave it to me as a gift. I already had 2 Blu-rays. So he emailed me. I don't recall giving him my email address, but whatever. He found it. He has his ways. And I told him I'd send it to him. And I sent it like the next day. And that was a month ago. The tracking said it was delivered to Monster Island. He has clearly not checked his parcel, but it's in there. Let's just try to wrap this up before he calls back.
Yeah, let's get this taken care of. Yeah, let's Jimmy, update the blocked numbers. All right. Yeah. So,
please.
Yeah, please. And please, because apparently he knows how to just force his way on the air, and I don't like this. Anyway.
Yeah, not a good time.
Yeah, not good. Very, very not good. Anyway, we now come to a very important segment on the show. I'm just going to give this to Kim right now. You patrons are in for a treat.
Travis Alexander, Michael Hamilton, Danny DiManna, author and creator of the Godzilla novelization project, Eli Harris, Chris Cook, host of One Cross Radio, Bex from Redeemed Hotaku, Damon Noyes, The Cell Cast, Tofu Fury, Eric Anderson of Nerd Chapel, Ted Williams, Winja the Ninja, Brad Batman, Edelman, Christopher Reiner, the Indiscreet One, Jake Hambrick, Edwin Gonzalez, Matthew Walsh, and Jonathan Courtwright. Thank you.
What can one say? What can one say? Kim, you're wonderful.
I think you're going to double my Patreon donations just from that.
You're welcome.
Like everyone's gonna be like, more money, more money. Yeah.
Dude.
All right. But now I should do episode previews. But I don't know what they're going to be. Is it season 4? Is it season 3? Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. When is this coming out? I don't know. But we have stuff coming.
Nailed it.
We have stuff coming. It's either Amerikaiju or the Monster Island World Tour. One of those. You'll find out.
You really need to not get sucked into another dimension next time you do one of these episodes.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm not. I'm just wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Try harder to not get sucked into another dimension.
Yeah. I mean, I try. I mean, like, sometimes I wonder about Jimmy. I think he spent a little too much time in a parallel dimension. I mean, I don't know what's going on with that over there. Probably the same one with Dr. Dorff. Who knows? You know, but anyway.
Don't say you've said his name too many times.
I know. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Mushroom Man. Anyway, so Mushroom Man. All right, and now we come to a very important segment of the show, and this is going to be quite possibly the most important edition of this segment ever. Say it with me now. Shameless self-promotion. Yeah, there you go. I'm just going to step aside. You guys get the floor. Shamelessly self-promote Erika, because that's why you're here.
That is why we're here.
Kim, is why we're here.
It's all yours.
All right, so I guess now I can get into the backstory of how Erika came to be real quick, if you would like. Okay, so November 2021. We're still in the middle of the pandemic. In-person conventions weren't really happening at the time. So the guys from Kaiju Transmissions put together this virtual convention called Kaiju Masterclass. And, you know, if you don't know what it is, it was basically just a series of live streams featuring special guests and what have you. And there were also some informational sessions on behind the scenes stuff, which was fantastic. And one such session was the making of Godzilla vs. Biollante, which was hosted by none other than Ed Godziszewski. Now, I don't remember the exact moment, but it was when I was watching that particular session when something sparked in my brain. Like, my brain tends to wander when I'm watching something. And as I was watching this, I had the thought, what if we knew more about Erika? Like, what if we actually see her being corrupted by the Godzilla cells as she transforms into Biollante? So I immediately grabbed a notebook, started jotting stuff down as Ed Godziszewski was talking, and I watched the movie, and I was excited to get started on the project. And I did initially want this to be a live action film, but I have about $2.35 in my bank account right now, so that's not happening. So my only option was to make an animated film. And most Godzilla fan films you see on YouTube are either like stop motion animation or 3D animation, and they look fantastic, but I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to do something a little different and make a 2D.
Will be avenged.
Oh, good Lord. I wanted to make
Kim, G-Fest 2023, watching a stop motion fan film.
Good Lord. So I wanted to make a 2D animated film just to stand out from the crowd a little bit. God. So yeah, unfortunately at that time I didn't know any 2D animators and it seemed almost impossible to find one. So I shelved the project. Fast forward to March of this year, 2023. I get bit by the filmmaking bug again, and I decide to revive the project. And that's when I messaged this dude from the Godzilla novel project.
Godzilla?
The
Godzilla book project.
The Godzilla book thing.
Godzilla book thing.
I forgot his name.
Gosh, silly bookification.
Gosh, silly bookification. Yeah. So, of course, our friend Danny, I basically say to Danny, I have a really cool idea for a short film and I need your writer brain.
Just gonna rip it right out of your head.
I ripped it out of his head and I splashed it onto my computer screen.
Splash is such an evocative word. Man. So yeah, that's when I came on board. Kim laid out this really, like, exactly what you just heard, like this amazing idea that had been in her head for years, and she said, I need somebody to write this thing, and I was like, splash. And some splashing happened. My cranium is empty currently. It will be returned after the Kickstarter is over. But I was just, I don't think I've ever said yes faster to a project, a collaboration in my life. Not only because Kim is a good friend and tremendously talented, but this idea is so great. And it taps into, and she knew it would when she asked me, it taps into the same avenue that I love to explore in the Godzilla novelization project, which is diving into the minds and the psyches, backstories, the unseen moments, the alternate moments of the characters from the films, whether they're monsters or particularly the humans. In particular, about 7 or 8 months ago now, I published a story on the GNP called Katsura's Story, which is kind of similar to this, but it's the story of Terror of Mechagodzilla through the eyes of Katsura as she becomes a cyborg, as she goes through the events of the story, things like that. And when Erika was explained to me, I thought, this sounds like something I just would love to work on. And I was like giddy that I had been asked to work on this. And I still am. I will be forever, frankly. Long after this thing is done and out there for the world to see, I will still be so happy and grateful that Kim asked me to work on this. So yes, I will be contributing. I'll be helping to write the story. I'll be writing the screenplay for this thing. And I could not be more thrilled. And there's a heck of a nice crew of people that you've got on board for this thing. So who are some of the other cool people that the fans out there can expect to see work from or hear from?
Well, then, the voice of the title character, Erika, will be voiced none other than Alyssa Charpentier, a.k.a. Alyssa Goji Geek. She was my first and only choice to play Erika because she's just absolutely perfect. And if you watch the teaser,
perfect voice for it.
You'll see it.
Yeah, her voice was just like, I got chills. And I mentioned this before because I've been promoting the heck out of this thing, that I wrote. When I write my GNP chapters, especially when I'm writing from the perspective of characters, I write with that character's voice in my head to help guide me. I did it for the Steve Martin report, which is adapting King of the Monsters. I wrote with Raymond Burr's voice in my head. And for this one, I know Alyssa's voice very well, and I wrote with her voice kind of guiding me. And the teaser trailer that's out to watch now, which I wrote and she obviously performed as Erika, was so much better than anything I'd had in my head. It's ridiculous. She is going to give people chills in this movie just with her performance alone. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I agree. And after searching high and low, I finally did find someone who not only does 2D animation, but is also a huge Godzilla fan. His name is Jesse Quails. He runs the Crazy Godzilla Fan channel. And so, yeah, we all collaborated, put together a teaser, like we just mentioned, for the Kickstarter that by the time this episode comes out will be launched. Yeah, and I dropped the teaser at the end of my panel at G-Fest, and here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll have a link to the Kickstarter page and to the teaser on your channel. So, so people can take a look at that. Your goal is
$10,000,
which is a lot, but your goal is to have something with singular point levels of animation.
Yes, I want it to get as close to singular point quality as possible. So in order for that to happen, we need about 10 grand.
Yeah.
Gotta pay the artists what they're worth.
Yep.
Yeah,
gotta,
for sure.
This movie is going to be driven by animation. I mean, everything you're going to see, every second of this film has to go through it has to go through Jesse's hands. Everything has to be animated. And in order for it to look and flow in the absolute best way possible, time and effort is going to be needed. And this is going to be a big project. Make no mistake. It's a short film, but it's a film. It's still a film. And animation is not easy, which is why I don't do it, because I leave that to people. I'd love to learn, but I leave that to people who are far more versed in it than I am. And Jesse's work is great. Absolutely. So this is like, that money is going to be going toward making sure that this thing looks as amazing as it can. And Kim is going to use her directorial prowess to put it all together, and it's going to look
and her
great.
editing prowess,
Directing and editing and all of the things. Guys, you can't see the hair flip that I just saw, but it was fabulous with a capital F. Trust me.
Fabulous.
It was. Oh my gosh, yes. I think Kim might have the best hair in the fandom. I'm just going to say it.
Well done.
She had the best hair at G-Fest.
No, she definitely did. Gosh, I mean, what else, Kim? What else can we throw onto this thing?
I guess we can mention that the Kickstarter campaign will be 60 days long because it is a huge amount. Let's see, what else can we say? If you're not able to be a backer, you can help by spreading the word. Tell all your Godzilla friends, tell all your anime friends, tell all your Seradian agent friends to just get the word out there.
That's what I was saying the other night is if you know any terrorists or botanists or geneticists, please let them know this is happening.
If you know any Matangoologists, yeah.
No.
I don't know. Maybe not from him.
No, that
donation would be very greasy and smell weird.
No,
I don't want.
Anyway, so.
But yeah, I'm a sucker for.
You need a picture of the Seradian agent that says "Donate, you guys."
Yes, there we go.
Memes. We need memes.
You need memes.
We need memes. We need videos. We need everything.
We need all the things.
This is like at the end of the day, this project, it does have a big goal, and it is all going to be going toward making this thing happen. But at the end of the day, we cannot make this thing happen. Kim cannot make her vision come to life without your help. So if you are able to donate, please do. If you're not able, that's fine. Just spread the word. Again, if you have any botanist or terrorist friends, we are open to like you
want some of that sweet bio major money.
We want some biotech money. We want some, like, if the Japanese government would like to get involved. It is also worth noting that this is not something that no money can be earned from this thing because these are copyrighted characters. This is going to be uploaded for free. This is not going to be like no revenue will be coming from this. This is a 100% pure passion project from Kim. This is not going to be on like DVD or anything like that. As cool as that would be, it's not something that can. Yeah, it can't be done just because we respect the Toho's copyright. Also, they scare us.
Yeah, they're scary.
Well, I mean, I do know a really good lawyer, but even he has trouble with Toho's army.
No, it's not worth it. I trust. It's nothing against Raymond, but I don't want to push it. So we're being incredibly careful with this to make sure that no copyright toes are stepped on. And I joke. I'm saying we're scared, and I'm teasing mostly, but it is like we do respect Toho and their copyright here, and we don't want to infringe on anything. I think I can.
Tanaka will not tell you no.
Yeah, it's true. But we don't want to go there. We respect the copyright, so we're not going to step on any toes. But this is such a big thing. Kickstarter perks are cool.
Yes. Kickstarter perks are cool. Yes, and one of the perks, I will say, the poster art that is done by Tanner Wright, very talented artist. One of the perks is you get a print of that poster art if you donate a certain amount. So that's cool.
You also get certain levels executive producer and or executive producer credit, which means you get to throw your weight around without actually doing any work, which is always good. We were talking about
you can be Tanaka and say no.
Yes,
there you go.
We were talking about making chairs with people's names on them so they could be on set, but unfortunately, there's no set. because it's animated. So we had to scrap that. And there's going to be a special premiere and a Q&A. And with Kim and us, like I'll probably be on that Q&A. I imagine Alyssa will be as well, and Jesse. Again, like it's a pretty small crew of people, but we're going to be working our butts off to make this as great as we can for all of you. That's the thing. We want to make a movie that we're going to like, but we want to make this for the fans. Like this is something that people are really going to, I think they're really going to like it. I can't wait for everybody to see what Kim has thought up, brought to life. It's going to be really great. Again, you guys are listening to this in the future, and the future. And if the future, and since you're in the future, the last thing I'll say is, again, I'm just ecstatic to be a part of this. I get to write a short film. Like what an honor that is. So I'm thrilled that Kim asked me. I couldn't be more happy to be on this crew. And I just, again, I ever so humbly ask that if the idea of looking at this great film, Godzilla vs. Biollante, from a unique and different perspective, an intimate perspective, and a slightly off-kilter one, it strikes your fancy and you want to experience this film in a new way through the eyes of a character who we didn't get to know that well and who has a fascinating story to tell, we need your help to make this happen. And we're gonna work our hardest to make it the best darn movie it can be. Kim, closing thoughts on your baby.
This is my baby. Yeah, one of the reasons I'm doing this is because I'm a sucker for a female protagonist, and I'm a sucker for storylines where a sweet, innocent soul becomes evil.
Yes. Those are always good.
Yeah. Completely off topic, but that's actually something that happens to Sailor Mercury in the live-action Sailor Moon series, but I digress.
And that's
my
something
pseudo sister's gonna make me watch that, isn't she?
She is.
Yep.
And that's also something that Alyssa has kind of in her wheelhouse, because her debut dark fantasy series, the Mermaiden trilogy, is all about that. It's all about a young, innocent soul that is like tempted by darkness and is corrupted slowly and becomes a monster. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of synergy. There's a lot of synergy going on here, folks. So there you go. We have a good crew together. I think we've made as good a case as we can for this.
Please give us your money.
Yeah, please. Shut up and give them your money.
Cough up the.
I will meme that. I will make that meme. Shut up and give them your money.
Shut up and give Kim your money. Give Erika
Kim
your money.
And read the show notes. That's where you will find them.
Read the show notes.
Watch the trailer. And again, even if you can't back, just text that trailer to people. Share it on your Facebook or your X Twitters or whatever the heck they're calling it now. I don't know.
Twitters.
Whatever. But yes, again, since you are in the future, the Kickstarter is live right now. If you're way off in the future in like 2030 or something, then I'm sorry you missed out. But we've already made 8 Erika sequels by that point.
Right. It's become
there you go.
It's become
Kim
a series.
Kim has launched her empire and has made animated adaptations of like every character ever.
And there's one for Katsura. There.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, folks. Like that would.
We can make that happen if this is successful.
If we can do this, but
can I write that one? No, Danny's already written it. What am I talking about?
I already wrote that. It's
already wrote.
I got this.
It's already done.
It's done. So
we'll do. I'll write a short film where we get into the mind of Kiryu or something like that.
There we
go.
Oh man,
he's just going to be a manic depressant. Why am I here?
Oh my god. Yeah, maybe we don't kickstart that one.
Maybe we don't.
I don't know.
Maybe we don't.
But there you go, Eric. Really, Jimmy?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, I get it. We need to wrap things up. But yes, Erika, everybody.
Erika.
Mr. Impatient Jimmy. Who would have thought he was impatient? Whatever. We're talking about Erika, man. Come on. Are you listen, okay, Jimmy, are you gonna back the Kickstarter? Oh, you already did. Oh. You already did. I mean, may I ask how much you donated? I may not. That is fair. That is fair.
All right then.
I appreciate this. That was probably too personal. I probably shouldn't have asked that. It doesn't matter how much you donated. We appreciate you donating, Jimmy. That is incredibly helpful. Every little bit helps. That's another thing. As I've been involved with backing Kickstarters and I've helped plan 1 or 2 in the past, and I always encounter people who feel bad because they only gave the lowest amount possible. And that's I hope that please don't think that. There's no such thing as an unhelpful amount of money in a Kickstarter. Every tiny little bit, $1 helps.
Yeah, exactly.
$5,
Like
$1, it's all important. So
right now, as of right now, I am at 1,117 subscribers. If every single one of those people gave like $10, we could hit that goal easily.
we'd be over the goal at that point.
We'd be over the goal, yeah.
You'd be looking at stretch goals at that point.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know. I'd like to get to a point where stretch goals are possible because there are ideas.
There are ideas.
So there you go. I think that's our pitch. I think that's about as good a case as we can make.
Yes. I think we've shamelessly self-promoted that quite well.
There was no shame. There was literally no shame in it.
No shame. Give us your money, please. Thank you.
All right. And with that, Jimmy, cue those credits. Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. If you want to join the discussion and be heard on the show, we'd love to hear from you. So email us at feedback@monsterislandfilmvault.com. Our website is monsterislandfilmvault.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Monster Island Film Vault, and on Twitter, where our handle is @TheMonsterIsla1. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. Follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter at NASAJimmy, and our many other colorful characters using the links in the show notes. The podcast logo was created by Tyler Souls from TylerDrawsComics.com. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrono, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack Battle with the Colossus and The Opened Way Battle with the Colossus by Kootani from the video game Shadow of the Colossus. All film and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can also support us by joining MIFV Max on Patreon. The Monster Island Film Vault is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production. Sayonara!